While others were in elementary school, he bled every day just to learn how to hold a knife. While others were falling in love, he was studying eavesdropping day and night. He had been a spy, living with frostbite all over his body. He survived countless life-or-death moments in mercenary groups. Decades later, he became a legend in the world of assassins. Those top-tier armed organizations around the world feared only him, the killing god, Peter. By then, Peter was already a man in his 60s. He had lived his whole life for the company, yet he was cast aside by the company's newly appointed boss, simply because he was old and had cancer. The boss understood that trash should be thrown away. Hearing all this, Peter decided to retire for good. But after the company sent countless assassins to kill him, his body unexpectedly regressed from his 60s to that of a 20-year-old. Just 3 months ago, after retiring, Peter opened a bookstore. Every day he followed the doctor's orders, taking all kinds of anti-cancer drugs. He wasn't afraid of death. After all, he had always hovered on the edge of it. Having risked his life for the company for 50 years, he didn't regret a single step he'd taken. Nor did he have any major regrets to this day. But only now did Peter realize that he had never left behind a single photo of himself in his entire life. At that moment, a female high school student suddenly walked in. She claimed she was there to buy textbooks for her younger brother, but a familiar scent made Peter fall silent for a moment. Then he put on a smile to welcome the girl. She asked whether there were review materials for the 3rd year of high school. As Peter turned to search, the girl quietly drew a dagger. But Peter said calmly, "Go back now, and I'll spare your life." The woman was shocked. How did the man before her know? Peter said coldly, "I've lived my whole life steeped in blood. Did you think a bit of perfume could cover the scent of blood on your blade?" With just a brief encounter, the girl realized that the killing god Peter was not someone she could trifle with. Suddenly, Peter lunged at the girl. He knew that after a failed assassination, the company would implement Plan B. As the girl was still wondering what Plan B meant, 2 assassins appeared on the bookshelves. The girl clearly didn't fully understand the company's rules. After a mission failed, even the assassins would be eliminated. Peter rushed to the other side of the shelves. As he drew his pistol and turned, he found the girl had already been taken hostage by the 2 assassins. And just then, he suddenly lost control of his body. The assassin sneered, "Is this old geezer really the legendary Peter?" Then the boss's intel man, Optiman, stepped out from the back. He said coldly, "Even with your unparalleled achievements, you still can't beat a terminal illness." Peter asked them what the reason was for killing him. Optiman said bluntly, "The moment you go out, you'll be hunted by tens of thousands of killers, because the bounty for killing you is a full 7.6 billion. And that number happened to be the money Peter had saved over a lifetime of risking his life. Optiman cackled, "Senior, once you die, that money will naturally fall into someone else's hands. So, Senior, you have to die by my hand." A flurry of punches rained down on Peter, and he was hurled hard across the room. Optiman said, "Looks like this guy passed out." Suddenly, Peter snapped his hand up and gave them a gift. It was a high-powered flashbang. The entire bookstore exploded into light, and Peter escaped by relying on his familiarity with the layout. The assassins judged that Peter had lost too much blood and shouldn't be able to run far. He collapsed beneath a slide in a park. Just now, in order to protect the girl, his abdomen had been pierced by a bullet. Facing cancer, he could put up no resistance. Having devoted 50 years to the company, he had never coveted wealth and glory. He couldn't understand why he had to end up like this. Peter was deeply unwilling to die like this. The money he had in the bank absolutely could not be touched, because that would be the inheritance he left to the one he loved. But for all his unwillingness, this dying body could no longer move an inch. Sometime later, inside Optiman's base, 2 assassins fumed that the 7.6 billion before their eyes had actually vanished. They wanted to stuff that damn old man into a trash can. A cold voice said, "That was my first time taking a photo." The assassins were startled. Why is this guy dressed just like Peter? Peter didn't know what was going on either. After one sleep, his body had changed. The assassins warned the newcomer, "This isn't a place a student like you should come to." Peter told them not to waste time and to take him to see Optiman. The 2 exchanged a glance, then laughed. If someone from the same trade shows up at the door, then they can't be allowed to live. The assassin was shocked. What was with this guy, that he could block the attack of a boxing champion with his bare hands? Peter exerted force with his hand, and the assassin's hand bones were instantly crushed. Another assassin raised a blade and attacked Peter, and the next second several fist marks appeared on his body. Peter muttered, "Those who are good with knives are third-rate assassins. Those good with all weapons are second-rate assassins. But first-rate assassins are those who can use anything in the world as a weapon." Seeing the other side use an octopus leg, the assassin instantly felt humiliated. He attacked in a rage, and Peter flicked the octopus leg to knock the assassin's knife away. He then suddenly wrapped him up with the octopus leg. These fools who don't know life from death are far too weak. So let me be the one to send you to hell. I, Peter, was once known as the #1 man in the industry. After one sleep, I actually turned back into my younger self. The old Peter the company is looking for is already dead. What remains is the rejuvenated killing god. The Maybach sped through the rainy night. Optiman knew that before long the company would officially issue a wanted order for Peter. He had to capture the dying Peter before then. Meanwhile, Peter left Optiman's base. Then it's time to take care of that bald guy. Peter went to the restroom. Under the startled gazes of passers-by, he looked at himself in the mirror in disbelief. The gunshot wound that pierced his abdomen had vanished, and the searing pain from the cancer cells was gone too. Peter had completely reverted to his younger self. Although he didn't know why, those people definitely wouldn't recognize how he looks now. However, before the next move, he had to buy a set of clothes first. Just then he noticed that in a strictly no-smoking area, two burly men were brazenly smoking and chatting away. He apologized and politely asked if they could go outside to smoke. But the two spewed filthy language and contemptuously told him to get lost quick, or he'd die a miserable death. They're not wrong. I'd better not waste time on guys like this. Since I can't waste time, let's make it quick. Peter slowly walked toward the two puffing away, intending to show them what happens when you disrespect your elders. One of the burly men raised his palm with a sneer. In the next instant, two heavy punches landed on him, and his windpipe caved in on the spot. The other burly man asked in terror, "Who on earth are you?" Though he didn't know the man, Peter knew the knife in his hand was a folding knife. He was holding it backward. With that grip, if he swung it he'd end up cutting his own fingers. The burly man roared, "Who said I was going to swing it?" But Peter knew that someone about to thrust wouldn't extend his arm first. Humiliated and enraged, the burly man moved to draw the blade. Peter easily knocked the knife from his hand, then took the man's own knife and stabbed toward him. But Peter didn't stab him. If he'd really wanted to, the man would have died 3 times over already. The burly man asked in terror, "Who on earth are you?" Peter crushed his collarbone and warned, "If you knew what I do, you'd have to die here." Afterward, Peter discovered that the 7.6 billion in his bank card was gone. He had clearly said not to touch that money. That was the enormous inheritance he'd left for the one he loved. At that moment, the kids behind him were excitedly talking about receiving scholarships from the Glory Club. The place where Peter grew up was called Yongguang Orphanage, once a small operation run by a religious organization. 50 years later, it had transformed into a large conglomerate with tremendous influence across all sectors. Wearing the mask called the Glory Club, it engaged in all sorts of illegal dealings. After all, that was the company to which Peter had devoted his life, so it had to be destroyed by his own hands. Inside the slaughterhouse late at night, the butcher sneered, "Why did you come alone to deal with me?" Optiman scoffed back, "You're not Peter. For trash like you, me coming alone is already more than you deserve." The butcher knew a guest was coming tonight, so he had specially prepared a full feast. The next second, 4 Bagner mercenaries stepped out of the shadows. The butcher knew Optiman wasn't one of the Glory Club's 12 apostles. He didn't understand what gave Optiman the nerve to be so arrogant. The butcher ordered that the guest be properly entertained. Optiman's face kept facing the butcher. A minute later, the butcher collapsed to the floor in terror. He couldn't understand how a human could move like an octopus. Optiman said coldly, "Even with all this you've prepared, it's not enough to get stuck between my teeth." After all, he had taken first in the nation in jiu-jitsu, thanks to his contortionist flexibility. In the next instant, with his neck rotated 180 degrees, he charged at the butcher. A moment later, Optiman returned to his own base. He saw the mess inside the base. The surveillance cameras had been destroyed, and there were no traces of weapons being used at the scene. Optiman was puzzled. How did that old man Peter escape death, and even kill their men? He told the girl that if she discovered Peter's whereabouts, she should report to him immediately. At that moment, the base's door was opened by someone. The waiter wondered what was going on. Clearly, they weren't open today. He politely asked the visitor, "Is there something you need? Did we arrange something privately?" Peter said coolly, "We didn't set anything up, but there's a bit of a score to settle." Optiman asked in confusion, "Have I pressed you about a debt you owe?" Peter said coldly, "That's right, about 7.6 billion. Optiman gave a slight smile, then gave a curt order. "Lock the door." He couldn't figure out how the kid in front of him knew information about Peter. The waiter had a round chambered. Optiman stared coldly at the uninvited guest, not knowing where this punk got his nerve. The kid showed not a trace of panic. So Optiman gave the uninvited guest 2 choices. Tell him Peter's whereabouts and leave alive, or resist and get his brains blown out. Peter replied calmly, I don't want either of those. How about I give you a third option? Though everyone who knew this has died, I am Peter, and I killed your 2 subordinates as well. Octomon was baffled. What nonsense was this guy spouting? He wondered, so those 2 weren't killed by Peter, but by this kid? Octomon didn't understand why this kid wanted to attack him. He advised, Kid, this is a real gun. Just tell me what I want and hurry up and leave. What exactly is your relationship with Peter? The girl also raised her dagger, ready for combat. Peter was helpless. Octomon actually didn't believe he was Peter, so the only option left was to kill him. Octomon ordered the underling with the raised gun, leave that guy with 1 breath left. The next second, a chopstick appeared in the underling's neck and at his gun's muzzle. He fell to the ground, completely motionless. The girl was shocked that his vital points had been pierced directly by chopsticks, and the man who looked about her age picked up another pair of chopsticks. The girl was stunned. Search the whole country and you still wouldn't find someone with this kind of ability. Octomon sneered, pretty cool. With your kind of skill, how about working with our glory club? You dog bastard. Peter quickly raised the table to block the bullets. Octomon scoffed, so you really are just a kid. This isn't a movie. Tables like that can't stop bullets. A large pool of blood had already spread out from under the table. As Octomon continued to make overtures, he walked toward it. Suddenly he lunged forward, raising his gun to fire. He realized that what was on the floor wasn't blood but chili oil. Octomon immediately began searching around for his target. At that moment, Peter was hanging on the wall, spraying chili oil from his mouth straight into his eyes. He then quickly smacked Octomon's gun hand offline and instantly disassembled his gun. Octomon couldn't react at all. He couldn't even see the guy's movements clearly. He couldn't understand. Was this guy really as young as he looked? Octomon's neck was twisted 180 degrees, and he fell to the ground, motionless. He couldn't make sense of it. Did this even make sense? In over a dozen years, he had fought hundreds of people, yet he had never seen someone this young with such strength. When Octomon was a child, he had heard his instructor speak of a sure-death tactic. When facing a powerful opponent, you should exploit the instant he relaxes his guard to create a distraction. From then on, he trained hard in a technique only he could pull off. Day after day of training, Octomon finally achieved it. He was confident he would never lose to anyone again. Octomon's eyes flew wide open. He clamped tightly onto the leg in front of him and unleashed his most powerful sure-death tactic. Octomon roared, I started doing this over 10 years ago. I've eaten more salt than a brat like you has eaten rice. Got it? You little punk, go to hell. Just then, a voice praised, you held out quite a while. Octomon looked up to see the target standing off to the side, completely unscathed. He had mistaken the person and strangled his own subordinate. Octomon had been in this line of work for over a decade, so he could judge accurately that he would die at this man's hands. Octomon finally realized that this guy's strength even exceeded the level of the 12 apostles. He hurriedly begged for mercy, hoping to negotiate. Octomon grabbed the girl beside him and told Peter to take her away. He said that although she lacked combat experience, she would have other uses. Peter said coolly, as expected of a Glory Club member, quick on the uptake. Deal, then. Hearing this, Octomon dashed for the door. He secretly thought that once he got back, he would investigate the guy's background and then kill him. Just then he heard the man behind him utter the 4 words, sure-death tactic. If, at the moment you think you've won, you turn your back to your opponent, then you're not far from death yourself. Those were clearly the words Octomon's instructor had said to him. An impossible thought suddenly flashed through Octomon's mind. In the young man before him, he saw the shadow of his instructor, Peter. Peter asked Octomon, do you remember what I just said? Those who know that I am Peter, none leave alive. Octomon, the nation's #1 in Jojitsu, was strangled to death. Facing the killing god Peter, he had not the slightest chance of survival. A moment later, in a certain Glory Club building, an assassin reported to a man. Octomon has been confirmed dead. That old man on the verge of death, within a day of being shot, left not a trace and killed 4 well-trained assassins. Truly interesting. The man ordered that from this moment, an SSS wanted order be issued to hunt down Peter. On a bustling street, everyone looked up in unison at the big screen. The elderly Peter had become the target for donations. Peter knew this was a disguised wanted order. He wouldn't let them come looking for him. He would go looking for them first. To wipe out Glory, Peter needed a helper. He had indeed thought of someone, but that wolfish guy was a bit troublesome. Late at night, Peter arrived at a secluded public restroom, and there were more and more people here. He remembered there was a mechanism here, somewhere between illicit dealings and hot nights. Peter successfully opened the secret passage. It was still as luxurious as ever, truly a place piled up with money. Just then a sharp cane pressed against Peter's neck. Peter asked, "Aren't all these silk clothes and jade pieces useless to you? After all, you're blind." The woman laughed. "I didn't expect that after lying low for so long, I'd be returning to my old trade today." Though she couldn't see, her sense of smell was extraordinarily keen. She knew the person before her was a young guy, with no smell of alcohol on him, and not a beggar from nearby. Young as he was brimming with killing intent. The woman demanded, "Did Glory send you?" Her offensive was extremely swift. The woman teased, "Little mouse, you're pretty good at dodging. That wallpaper is quite expensive." Peter slowly began to wonder, was she really blind? Although the woman was very strong, Peter didn't want to play with her anymore. The woman hadn't expected there to still be someone this strong in Glory Club, but she hadn't sensed any killing intent from the newcomer. The matter between her and Glory could only end with one side dead. The woman shouted angrily, miming, "Bite him." But then a strange sound made her freeze. The German Shepherd, normally extremely wary of strangers, was actually fawning over a young man it had never seen. After hearing Peter's explanation about his rejuvenation, the woman, incredulous, felt him over again and again. Not only was his skin smooth, there was no old man smell either. She was shocked. Could such a thing really be possible? The woman lay down on the floor and asked Peter, "Was it in this position that I died?" She could hardly wait to try. Next she asked again, "How did I die? Was it by gunshot, a knife wound, or poison?" After Peter flicked her twice, the woman finally settled down. She asked, "Senior, are you going to fight Glory alone? How will you do it?" Peter told the woman he would enter the eye of the typhoon. She was puzzled. "What is that?" Peter knew Glory was already frantic to catch him. The way to get a grip on and shake its inner workings was to become a Glory Club assassin. The woman didn't understand. What kind of nonsense was that? Then it dawned on her. No one recognized the young Peter, so if this Peter became a Glory Club assassin, it would be equivalent to Peter personally drafting the operation to capture himself. The woman praised him, "Senior, you truly are a terrifying person." But she thought it was impossible, because only those from Yangguang Orphanage could become Glory Club assassins. Although the former Peter came from Yangguang Orphanage, the rejuvenated Peter was just an outsider. However, Peter knew there was another way. 2 days later, at a private high school under Glory Club, the girls squealed, "Our school finally has a handsome guy." Peter's method was to get into Yangguang High School. Now his name was Kim Sun-gu. The girls reminded him, "Sun-gu, we have to go to the auditorium now." Although on the surface it looked like an ordinary school, the purpose of this school's existence was to train assassins. It secretly ran an assassin specialization class. The only way for Peter to become a Glory Club assassin was to enter the assassin specialization class. The auditorium was abuzz. The woman on the earpiece knew the assassin class only took those from the orphanage and asked him whether he had any way to get in. Peter knew there was only one exception. Rare, but capable of drawing their attention. Peter went on stage and introduced himself as the transfer student Kim Sun-gu who arrived today. He said his hobby was fighting, and he was good at it, and that he was an assassin. Hearing this, everyone showed a look of shock. This was exactly the effect Peter wanted, to get the assassin class to extend an olive branch to him. Additionally, Peter added that he intended to become a study-focused assassin who excelled academically. At that moment, a burly man shouldered through the crowd. Peter knew a fish had taken the bait. The burly man demanded, "Did you seduce Yejin?" Although Peter didn't know what he was talking about, the situation seemed perfect for drawing attention. Jang Yiziel had loved only one woman over many long years. This was the 22nd day of his relationship with his girlfriend Yejin. He was called the most devoted man at Yangguang School. He was also the man whose girlfriend had been stolen today by the transfer student Kim Sun-gu. Jang Yiziel wanted revenge. This man who dominated Mapo district with his fists, for the first time in his life, felt the breath of death. In the final moment of his life, he apologized to Yejin. "Appa couldn't protect you." But Peter's fist did not fall. He flicked him on the forehead. Jang Yiziel collapsed to the ground, sitting. Just then a teacher ran over and scolded, "How dare you fight on this sacred campus?" He demanded, "Brat, what does your father do?" Peter said he was probably already deceased. The teacher apologized but still dragged him away. Members of the assassin class watching from above found the transfer student somewhat interesting. They were considering whether to get rid of this presumptuous guy. Bayal in the crowd was dumbfounded. She couldn't fathom how that man had shown up here. Was he trying to destroy this school? At lunchtime, Bayal heard someone call out, "The classmates were too enthusiastic, so I came here to take refuge." Bayal, why are you here? Bayal, feeling a bit guilty, said she had no appetite, but Peter noted that the amount of food on her tray seemed a bit much. Bayal recalled the scene from back then. At the time Peter asked her, "Do you want to live?" Then say it was this man who killed the people here. That sentence will save your life. Bayal asked, I kept my promise to you. So why did you still come looking for me? Are you here to silence me? Because of you I've become a surveillance target of the company. Do you know how exhausted I am now? Peter said, I didn't come for you. And this bit of pressure is yours to bear. After all, thanks to me saving your life, you're able to sit here and eat. Bayal said bluntly, you have no idea how terrifying this place is. You don't even know who I am. What do you think an outsider like you can possibly do here? Peter smiled and said, then just help me, won't you? Aren't you already in the same boat with a clueless guy like me? Bayal was speechless and wondered why she should help him. Peter replied coolly, I'll be counting on you from now on, classmate Yuna. Yuna was shocked. How did that guy know her real name? But when she turned around, the guy was already gone. The sports day proceeded as scheduled. The man known as Shin Yongguang's Bolt felt as if he was destined to retire today, all because of that newly transferred guy. After being utterly blown away, the man hid in a corner and wept into his hands. Next was a vision test. Classmates were amazed. Was this transfer student raised on the steps or something? His eyesight was that good. Then came the advanced fruit peeling class. Peter picked up a paring knife. Though a bit unpracticed, he still tried to carve out a rabbit. During the break, 3 delinquent students sneered at the teacher. We just don't want to clean. What can you do about it, you piece of trash? Besides suddenly losing your temper or docking points, what else can you do? As a teacher you're actually suppressing our morale. Do you want your teaching license revoked? The teacher snapped in anger, careful, or I'll expel you for infringing on teacher's authority. The delinquents jeered, then were just defending students' rights. They said they'd take the teacher to court and get his license revoked. One of them planned to post the teacher's flustered look online. The views would surely be high. At that moment, they noticed that so-called killer who had transferred in not long ago. The 3 delinquents menaced him, telling him to get lost. Peter asked, what if I don't? One of them spat on Peter with contempt and mocked him. If you don't want to die, killer, then quietly scram, or quietly go die. This guy's punch was far too slow. The other 2 delinquents kept laughing at him. How can you miss with every punch? Even the delinquent throwing the punches was puzzled. Why the hell can I land a hit? Another delinquent raised a brick to launch a sneak attack. The next second the brick in his hand crumbled into powder. Moments later, the 3 of them meekly apologized to the teacher. As they backed away and ran, they still told Peter to just wait and see. Victory belongs to justice. Peter asked with concern, Teacher, are you all right? But the teacher actually scolded him, saying a student shouldn't use force in front of a teacher. Peter bent down to pick up the phones the 3 had forgotten to take. The teacher asked, Are you Sunggu? Before the words had fallen, a sharp whoosh split the air. The teacher chuckled, Just as I thought. I have a good eye for people. You're no ordinary person. The proof is that your cup didn't spill a single drop of coffee while you moved. The teacher told Sunggu to tell him, Where did you learn this? No, what did you learn it for? Peter said bluntly, he wants revenge against you under Glory who took his life. Of course Peter couldn't say that, so he fabricated an enemy who had taken everything from him. Hearing this, the teacher asked solemnly, Kim Sunggu, do you want to join the service department? Peter had waited a long time for this moment. He was waiting for this teacher to approach him. He could sense the gaze peeking at him from the shadows. He could feel it all. Teacher Oh Guangyu, to be precise, was a killer instructor for Glory. The instructor explained, the assassin training class at Shin Yongguang School presents itself as the service department. Only a select few are chosen to learn the assassin's way of survival there. Kim Sunggu, you're a rare transfer. The road ahead will be full of thorns. Welcome aboard. This is the service department that cultivates Glory's assassins. Peter couldn't help but wonder, was this really a place that trained assassins? The instructor called everyone to gather and stated that Kim Sunggu was the newly joined staff member. Yuna was stunned. Why had this guy shown up here? She prayed silently. Could this guy just pretend he doesn't know me, please? Peter winked at Yuna. She was instantly terrified, wondering if that was a signal he was going to kill her. Peter introduced himself, thinking to himself how such an ordinary-looking place could be a base for training killers. But then 2 people picked a fight. This was a place only open to those from Yongguang Orphanage, and they were unhappy that the instructor had admitted someone through the back door. The 2 were Biggie Dako of the 58th class of Yongguang Orphanage, adept at high-speed movement, and Junior Dako of the 58th class of Yongguang Orphanage, skilled in brute force combat. Peter was speechless. He himself was from the 1st class of Yongguang Orphanage. The instructor told everyone to hold a simple welcome party. The students excitedly decided to make some fruit tea, using the new student's meat as an ingredient. The Dako brothers pushed through the crowd to welcome the new student personally. For their own safety, Yuna told them not to do this. But Junior Dako sneered that if she didn't want to be taught a lesson along with him, she should step aside. They asked whether the transfer student had fought outside before. Was he some so-called boss of Mappo or something? Peter could no longer remember how many times he'd fought. The Dako brothers advised the transfer student, "Get nervous, because today will be the last time you ever fight." Biggie Dako said coldly, "This is not a place for people like the boss of Mappo to come. People like that could never understand what we stake our lives for." Junior Dako continued, "We're doing this to become the strongest assassins in the world, like that person." The person they spoke of was none other than Apostle Peter. So the Dako brothers detested those who got in through the back door. The three of them spaced out from one another. Peter couldn't be bothered to listen to the two of them take turns spouting nonsense. "So the two of you come at me together." The Dako brothers thought this guy really didn't know what was good for him. They shouted angrily, "You backdoor entrant, you have no idea how heavy our lives have been till now." Yet over these 65 years, Peter had lived a life heavier than anyone else's. A moment later, the classmates all praised the Dako brothers for a job well done. They said the transfer student couldn't withstand them at all, and they'd scared him off. As Peter was leaving, he heard someone call out. Yuna asked, "Are you looking down on the service department?" She had been watching closely just now. Thus she noticed that when Peter fought the Dako brothers, he hadn't thrown a single punch. Peter argued that he'd been going all out. But Yuna knew the guy before her was lying. The reason was that the states of the three of them were completely different. "You didn't even break a sweat." Yuna demanded. "What's the reason? You snuck into this school and are hiding your strength. What exactly are you trying to do? What's the scheme?" Peter said nothing and looked at Yuna. "It's time to go to the cafeteria for dinner. I should get going." Yuna was exasperated. It was midnight. Meanwhile, at the highway bus terminal in City a bus driver was dancing with joy because someone had chartered the bus for 1 million. He waved his hands in excitement. Then he felt something was odd. He had clearly received a group reservation today, so why was there only one passenger? The driver asked where the others were. The other party said it was just him, but he had a lot of luggage. The driver enthusiastically went to help load the bus, but suddenly noticed something unusual. The passenger knocked his hand away and asked, "Want to bet on what's inside the suitcase?" Sometime later, the bus started up. Although the driver hadn't taken the bet, he was certain he hadn't seen wrong. That suitcase just now was clearly moving. "Instructor, we've received a commission here. The client is Chairman Choi Yun-chong of the Data Group, one of Glory's biggest sponsors. The team that successfully completes this commission will receive the chairman's recommendation and immediately obtain a service qualification certificate. In other words, they become official assassins. The content of the commission is to rescue a hostage. Recently, kidnappings targeting students have happened frequently. But the issue is that among the abducted is Chairman Choi's only son." A student asked, "For finding the chairman's son, can't we just call the police?" Even so, the instructor knew Chairman Choi wanted revenge. "Then let's start sign-ups now. If you don't go, you'll have to train here another 2 years to become official assassins." Giving a big case like this to students feels a bit strange. A disdainful voice said, "You'll just rot here for life." The Dako brothers decisively raised their hands to sign up for the operation. Suddenly they seemed to see something funny and burst out laughing. The backdoor entrant and the wimp were signing up too. Soon only those who had signed up remained in the classroom. But the instructor wasn't in any rush to move. Instead, he told everyone to go have as much fun as they wanted first. Peter wondered if they were really going to rescue a hostage at an amusement park. The Dako brothers couldn't understand why they had to wear bikinis in an amusement park. Yuna, speechless, told them to turn their heads back around. The instructor said, "This is where Chairman Choi Yun-chong's son was kidnapped. Our task is to rescue the hostage, then take down the kidnappers. Aside from that, the only information is that the last place the chairman's son appeared was called Blue World. As for where he is now or whether he's still alive, in a place this big there's simply no way to know. There is no way to start searching." But Yuna wondered, under these circumstances, did Kim Sun-gu have some method? Otherwise, why did he act as if he'd seen through everything? The amusement park staff apologized to the visitors, because this ride could only be used after making an online reservation. Since it was their first time ever at an amusement park, of course they didn't know about such things. Junior Dako asked Yuna, "Are you here to play? You actually made a reservation. No sense of being an assassin at all." In the blink of an eye, the Dako brothers were already playing. They excitedly experienced things they had never tried before. Yuna couldn't help but gripe that they were just putting on airs. The toy shooting booth owner was pitching. "This is very simple. Uncle here is basically doing a losing business." But he was thinking to himself that these two suckers definitely couldn't hit. He had hung weighted axles beneath the prizes. With these two suckers, he could close early today. Yuna was a bit at a loss, because it was her first time using this kind of fake gun. Very soon the shop owner was dumbfounded. He really could clock out early as he'd wished. Peter observed certain places in the amusement park. Everyone looked very excited. After all, it should be their first time at an amusement park. They had gone through the same kind of past as Peter. Make the most of these few chances to play, because I don't know when they'll next be able to smile this happily. Yuna, who had slipped away to snack in secret, finally remembered the mission. At that moment, her phone picked up an AirPod signal. Choi Yun-jail was precisely the chairman's kidnapped son. That meant he might be nearby. But Yuna found it a bit odd. Why was the location in the women's restroom? She decided to go in first to check the situation, then consider requesting backup. There wasn't anything special in the restroom. The signal was coming from that person over there. So as not to cause unnecessary misunderstanding, Yuna prepared to smile and politely ask, "Where did you get those AirPods?" The other party screamed in fright on the spot. Her boyfriend rushed in to check what was happening. The woman immediately told him, "That crazy woman tried to hit me." Yuna hurried to explain that it was a misunderstanding. The woman told her boyfriend not to use force. Just make her apologize and that would be enough. But the man still wanted to rough Yuna up a few times first. Not far away, the three wondered where Yuna had gone off to snack again. The Dako brothers worried she might be in trouble, right? Although Peter didn't see Yuna, he didn't think she would encounter anything dangerous enough to worry them. Yuna quickly cinched the man in a choke. He was just about to stick her lollipop into the man's ear, when she suddenly remembered she couldn't do that right now. Yuna told the woman to speak up now. "Where did you get those earbuds?" The amusement park visitors were whispering about a certain handsome guy. Yuna ran over and said she'd found this place through Choi Yun-jail's app. It seemed her target and Peter's were the same place. In a crowded place like an amusement park, there are few ways to make someone disappear without a trace. This ride had fully booked reservations all day, yet not a single person went in. It was the unremarkable haunted house. They pushed open the haunted house's door. The Dako brothers said gravely, "Game over. Everyone focus. You two just stick close to us." Yuna told those two idiots to let go of her clothes first. Peter felt something was very wrong. It was far too quiet here. Peter told them all to get ready. Their mission was starting now. The mission was already half successful. From the start, their task was to get kidnapped. At that moment, the Yangwang school instructor hurried to try to call off the mission. The liaison asked in confusion what had happened. The instructor had just learned that this wasn't a simple mission. Park Sang-do had appeared. He was someone once nominated as an apostle candidate, but even Glory couldn't control him, so they kicked him out. The liaison, confident, said it wasn't fools who were deployed on missions. They've learned everything they need. What could happen? The instructor knew that guy was different. The liaison stared in shock as the instructor pulled up his pant leg. Meanwhile, inside the haunted house, Peter and Yuna were tied up. Park Sang-do asked, "Do you know? The drug that put you to sleep is chloroform, but normally when people pass out, they should sleep with their mouths open." Inside the school, the instructor revealed his prosthetic leg and said solemnly, "We must stop Park Sang-do as soon as possible. He is an extremely cruel guy. Once you get caught by that guy, their legs will be chopped off." At that moment, Yuna's phone rang. Seeing the familiar name on it, Park Sang-do chose to pick up. The instructor said in a low voice, "If you dare lay a finger on them, I'll kill you even at the cost of my life." Park Sang-do greeted Senior Guang Yu warmly and told him not to sound so scary. "Are you afraid I'll turn them into cripples like you?" Park Sang-do asked. "How about we make a bet? Bet on how many legs they'll have left by the time you get here, Senior?" The liaison didn't understand. Why was the instructor trembling? Just then, the not-yet-tied Dako brothers loudly berated the criminal. Park Sang-do told the senior to hurry over, since he was about to get started. Yuna whispered, "Kim Sung-gu." Seeing Peter's mouth hanging open, she wondered if he really was asleep. She grieved inwardly that he was truly heartless. Now this was all she could do. Peter didn't understand what she was doing. He hadn't been asleep from the start. Yuna told Peter not to misunderstand. She was only doing this to wake him up. She told Peter to follow her and use what they'd learned in training to get free. But Peter had already gotten out of his restraints for some time. He intended to act in time to stop any accident. Yuna told Peter to listen up. That person just now used to be a glory assassin. Peter asked calmly, "Classmate Yuna, do you like to bet?" The Dako brothers hadn't expected the criminal to be just an ordinary office worker. They threatened, "If you don't want to die, then tell us where Choi Yun-chang's son is." Park Sang-do rather liked how rude young people sounded when they spoke. He asked whether they wanted to make a bet. "If you win, I'll grant all your demands and release Chairman Choi Yun-chang's son as well." The instructor on the other end of the phone was extremely anxious, because he knew you could never win a bet with that guy. Park Sang-do added, "If you lose, then each of you leaves one leg before you go." The Dako brothers asked, "Are you really okay with that? Because starting tomorrow you'll be in a wheelchair." At that moment, Park Sang-do tossed the Dako brothers a knife. He explained that bets were only interesting if they were fair. Biggie Dako sneered, "Uncle, you'll regret this." He was Shin Yangguang School's #1 knife fighter. Biggie Dako judged that with identical weapons, Park Sang-do's movements were duller than his own. In a drawn-out fight he would win. But Biggie Dako didn't understand what was going on. The two were clearly the same type of knife, yet they felt very different. Park Sang-do asked, "Young man, what's wrong? Is there a problem?" Biggie Dako finally discovered the shameless bastard's trick. The knife didn't have a blade at all. At this point, Peter and Yuna also felt like helping. But Biggie Dako blocked the two of them and roared, "Stay out of it. This is a fight between us. If we two brothers can't beat that middle-aged man, you won't be his match either." The Dako brothers understood that Park Sang-do wouldn't know what their goal was. The final hurdle for graduating from the orphanage was Hell Week, where they had to spend a month in a place with no water or food. The supplies issued to them were only a gun and a single bullet. They had to survive in that place where thousands of beasts roamed. Everyone used their bullet on different things. Some used it for hunting, some to betray their friends, and some to end their own lives. Thus pride arose in the Dako brothers' hearts. Better to fight to live than die like that. The two of them saved their bullet until the very end. At the time they had an intuition. One day this bullet would decide the brothers' fate. Only after Hell Week ended did the Dako brothers learn that out of 181 orphans in the 58th cohort, only 2 had passed. Then they learned a shocking piece of news. The apostle killer Peter, who was their age back then, had set a record never seen before or since. Moreover, in the 58 years of Hell Week training, he was the only one who never used his bullet. To become someone like the killer Peter, to become the strongest assassin, the Dako brothers had devoted at least 10 years of their time. In their eyes, the middle-aged man before them was nothing but a stepping stone. Junior Dako quickly clamped down on Park Sang-do. Biggie Dako had said before that he would make Park Sang-do regret giving him the knife. Park Sang-do cackled, "Maybe what should be cut off isn't the legs, but this arm?" Biggie Dako let go of the knife in his hand, because he knew that without a blade it couldn't cut. So Junior Dako just needed to stab hard. The knife in Junior Dako's hand thrust out fiercely. Park Sang-do asked coldly, "Do you want to become a killer like Peter? Don't delude yourself." Junior Dako was shocked. He actually shattered his own knife. This is a Nepalese curved blade called a kukri. In both mass and weight it is 3 times that of an ordinary knife. Park Sang-do had trained with this blade his whole life. This thing was faster than a knife and heavier than an axe. It was a life-taking weapon in itself. Combined with Park Sang-do, who excelled at eskrima, it could truly be called a meat grinder. The Dako brothers hadn't expected that he could wield such a heavy blade so nimbly. They realized that this middle-aged man was no ordinary office worker, but a monster through and through. Before losing consciousness, the Dako brothers told Yuna and Kim Sun-gyu to run. Park Sang-do told Yuna to stop making a fuss. How could he possibly be ruthless to students? But since they'd made a bet, it had to be wrapped up. "Then each of you leave a leg." The instructor on the other end of the phone roared, "No, I'll give you my other leg. Please don't touch them." Just then a voice asked Park Sang-do, "Want to make a bet? The stakes are doubled. Bet 2 legs and an arm, and if you're willing, throw in your life as well." Park Sang-do smiled and said, "A bunch of interesting folks have arrived. Worthy of glory." He tossed Peter a knife and smiled. "Bets are only interesting if they're fair." Peter stopped Yuna, who wanted to dissuade him, and casually picked up something from the ground beside him. Peter said that using this tray would be enough. Park Sang-do immediately let out a derisive laugh. He laughed loudly and said, "How amusing. But, student, Uncle here won't go easy on you just because you're young." Park Sang-do's offensive was extremely fierce. He teased as he asked, "How many strikes do you think you can block with a nickel-silver tray? Pray you can survive even one." On the other side, the instructor suddenly, for some reason, could hear only a burst of static. He absolutely could not let what happened that day happen again. He couldn't let everyone die at Park Sang-do's hands like that day. That day, Park Sang-do told the croupier not to be nervous. He asked the lady, "Want to make a bet with yourself? Bet on whether I'll be alive or dead when I leave here. But if I were you, miss, you'd go all in on me." Glory's killer Oh Guangyu announced, "Park Sang-do, you've caused too much trouble lately. Only sacrificing you can quell public outrage." From Glory's standpoint, this was a team composed of veteran assassins of B rank and above. No matter how formidable Park Sang-do was, he would be powerless to face 5 B rank assassins at once. but in Oh Guangyu's view, the blade that guy was wielding seemed far beyond the human realm. On that day, it was also the end of Oh Guangyu's career as an assassin. It had nothing to do with whether a chainsaw or a knife was stronger. What mattered was the person holding it. Park Sang-do smiled and said, "Young man, you're very lucky, but what shall we do now? Your only shield has been split in two." Seeing things go wrong, Yuna wanted to seize a chance to help. A kukri isn't originally a sharp weapon, but it was sharper than Peter had imagined, so he'd been startled just now. He then pressed down hard on the tray in his hand. Yuna was astonished. Was that tray not a shield but a blade? "Thanks to Park Sang-do, I've got myself a powerful weapon." Park Sang-do laughed and said, "Seems you're not an ordinary student." Inwardly, he was startled. Was it a coincidence? Just now he had clearly struck true, but in that instant, the guy stepped back. This is really outrageous. Park Sang-do didn't know where that little brat had learned that trick, but that little trick wouldn't work on him. Whether it was accidental or deliberate, he'd know once he checked. After feinting with his jacket, Park Sang-do followed up with a fierce offensive. He was confident that this time his cut was right on target. But then, having lost his target, doubt appeared in his eyes. Park Sang-do clearly felt he had cut something. Was it this shabby pad? A cold gleam flashed at Park Sang-do's neck, and he recoiled in terror. Park Sang-do knew he had nearly died. That guy instantly appeared behind me and, without hesitation, slashed my neck. If I hadn't blocked with my hand, my carotid artery should already have been neatly severed. Such exquisite technique made Park Sang-do wonder, was this person really a student? He suddenly understood that a tray blade couldn't possibly cut through thick clothing, nor could it block his own blade. So the guy had aimed at his exposed neck. He had done so at a speed he could not hope to match. Setting aside the identity of a student, was this guy really human? Yuna understood that because a kukri is very heavy, everything around it would be shattered with each swing. A direct hit would surely mean death. But Park Sang-do was slower than Kim Sung-gu, presumably because of the blade's weight. If a war of attrition continued, Yuna was certain Kim Sung-gu would win. Suddenly, a bloody gash appeared on Peter's face. Yuna hadn't expected Kim Sung-gu to actually be hit. Park Sang-do said coldly, "To slaughter cattle you use a butcher's knife, but to deal with a rat you should use a rat-killing blade." There was actually another blade hidden inside his knife. Peter knew that Park Sang-do's kukri was 3 times an ordinary knife in both math and weight. Since that guy had abandoned the weight, then speed was no longer a weapon that belonged only to him. Park Sang-do's offensive became even more ferocious. Yuna was astonished. Compared to just now, Park Sang-do was practically a different person. But she found it odd. That kind of spike was clearly a weapon meant for stabbing. Why was Park Sang-do only brandishing it? Park Sang-do quickly adjusted his angle. He was going to kill the bastard in front of him. But the sure-kill strike he was preparing froze in midair. Park Sang-do was shocked. Why couldn't his hand move? Peter asked him, "What's wrong? Is your hand out of strength?" Park Sang-do finally realized. That guy hadn't been trying to cut off his neck. From the very beginning, his target had been his hand. Peter said coolly, "The flexors, extensors, abductors, the median nerve, radial nerve, ulnar nerve, and so on, all the muscles, nerves, and ligaments needed to grip something, I've already severed them for you." From the very beginning, Peter had no intention of killing him. Park Sang-do couldn't comprehend. The person before him now was neither a student nor a kid. He couldn't understand how many people this guy had devoured. Park Sang-do had just said that a nickel-silver tray couldn't beat a steel blade. Then to wrap things up from here, Peter would show him what it meant to pit an egg against a rock. Most of Park Sang-do's past memories were of being bullied. Those guys jeered as they urinated on him. Every day, Park Sang-do fantasized about killing those bastards. But he didn't have the strength or the courage to resist. When Park Sang-do wished he could leave this world, a voice asked, "Do you want to make a bet with me?" The words made Park Sang-do's heart suddenly race. His feeble legs also involuntarily propped up his teetering body on the cliff's edge. Although Park Sang-do didn't know why, one thing was very clear to him. A wager with his life on the line could make him strong. Dopamine, serotonin, and adrenaline were secreted madly. Every time he gambled with his life, Park Sang-do could feel pleasure and power. Betting became his addiction. In every subsequent wager, Park Sang-do was the winner. He was the strongest. But now, Park Sang-do was being brutally beaten. The opponent looked like a snout-nosed brat. Park Sang-do roared, "Kneel. If you don't, I'll blow all of this up." Chairman Choi Yun-chang's son was in those suitcases. If the grenade really went off, everyone here would die, because gas pipes were connected to the ceiling. Park Sang-do bellowed, "Kneel if you don't want mutual destruction." Peter said disdainfully, "Save it for when you can actually do it." Peter warned Park Sang-do, "I've already pulled the grenade's pin. If you don't want to die, clamp it tight with your jaw." That's how you're supposed to make a threat. Peter's fists kept raining down on Park Sang-do. Looked like he was biting down pretty well. Peter reinserted the pin and told Park Sang-do to get up. We're not done yet. Park Sang-do shouted. I didn't want to take it this far. Yuna was surprised. What was he trying to do now? Yet Park Sang-do merely knelt and begged me. Let's call it a draw with him. At this moment the instructor also arrived here. He saw an unbelievable scene. The once overbearing Park Sang-do was now humbly begging for mercy. And just like that, the incident came to an end. Chairman Choi Yun-chong's son, together with the others who had been kidnapped, was rescued. Park Sang-do was taken to Glory headquarters. Oh Guang-yu still couldn't believe that the nightmare who ruined his assassin career was dead. Those kids who were still students had actually done it. Although Oh Guang-yu noticed many suspicious points, even the people involved denied it, so he had nothing to say. Because of this mission, the four of them became official assassins. But the Dako brothers were displeased. We captured an assassin presumed to be S rank, and yet the IDs issued to us are only D rank. As the elevator door slowly opened, two burly, long-haired men appeared before them. The Dako brothers felt they'd come to the wrong place. They hurriedly apologized and tried to close the doors and leave. At that moment a woman stepped out and said, "Welcome, we've been waiting for you here." The Dako brothers quickly held the elevator doors open and said, "We're the ones you're waiting for." The woman explained, "Because you rescued young Master Eunjail of the Deha group, the chairman specifically instructed us to treat you all well." After dinner, once the bespoke high-end suits were ordered, the woman led everyone to today's main stage. She explained that the Data Group is a defense company with the most advanced technology in the world. It is also responsible for supplying Glory's assassins with various combat weapons. To congratulate you on being appointed official assassins, the chairman said you can take as much as you want. The Dako brothers said arrogantly, "When have we ever needed to fight with guns? We only need these." The woman, embarrassed, said, "I'll courier them to you." At this moment Yuna noticed valuable Damascus knives, and one's made of S30V steel. She wanted to take one too, but she suddenly remembered she hadn't done anything that day, so she wasn't qualified to take such things. The woman asked, "Mr. Kim Sun-gu, have you made your choice?" Peter took only a pen, because to him everything here was a weapon. Suddenly the woman's phone rang, and she seemed to receive some instruction. "Mr. Kim Sun-gu, please come with me to the chairman's office." Very soon the woman completed her errand. Chairman Choi Yun-chong of the Data Group smiled and said, "Welcome, student Kim Sun-gu." Peter asked in puzzlement, "What did you call me here for?" Choi Yun-chong said lightly, "I don't mean anything else, you don't need to be too nervous." "No, actually, you might well be nervous." Choi Yun-chong asked, "Student Kim Sun-gu, why do you look exactly like Peter?" In 1978, the Deha Group chairman's son, Choi Yun-chong, was kidnapped by the Soviets. The Soviets demanded that the Deha Group hand over the missile it had developed. The chairman appealed to the United States, sending the most elite units, including Delta Force, to Moscow. However, the Soviets were not to be underestimated. The Delta Force sent in was wiped out. In desperation, the Deha Group's chairman at the time could only go to that place, the sacred Yongguang Church. The chairman begged the priest to rescue his son. "Our Deha Group will meet your every need. Please send the strongest among the 12 apostles you trained to save my son." The priest said calmly, "Everything will be fulfilled according to the Lord's will. So pray." For the Lord's missile has already arrived in Moscow. The chairman asked the priest, "Can he really do it? The 3 special ops teams that went ahead have already been wiped out. Even if he's an apostle, what can one man?" The priest cut him off and said coolly, "He can do it. Even alone, he can do it, because my son is the strongest." The Soviets were baffled. How did that guy get in? The young Peter said coldly in Russian, "Just right." Then the person who had just spoken was shot through the head. Peter cleared the carriage with unbelievable speed. Every gunshot meant one person dead. What he meant was that the numbers were just right. The number of Soviets and the number of his bullets. At this moment someone emerged from the foremost carriage and shouted in Russian, "Drop your weapon. If you don't want me to blow your young master's brains out, throw the gun down now." This Soviet had heard before of a monster who could infiltrate anywhere alone and make it back alive. "That person is you, isn't it? Apostle Badro." Suddenly Peter called out, "Choi Yun-chong, when I count to 3, duck your head." The Soviet snapped, "What are you babbling about? Speak Russian." By then Peter had already counted to 2. As 3 left his lips, a coin appeared in his hand. In an instant the coin shot from Peter's hand and sank straight into the space between the other man's brows. Peter said evenly in Russian, "Rest well, Lieutenant Colonel Andreev of the Foreign Intelligence Service." The young Choi Yun-chong thanked the man who had saved him. He would never forget this kindness for the rest of his life. Peter corrected him. Choi Yun-chang, I didn't come to save you. I came to save the data group's future. If you understand, get up. After all, the road home is still long. Thanks to Peter, Choi Yun-chang lived to the present. Even 40 years later, he had never forgotten his benefactor's face. He asked, "Are you Badro's grandson?" Peter was a bit speechless. He hadn't been this on edge in a long time. But that frail little fellow has become quite imposing now. Choi Yun-chang had heard that Peter chose only a pen in the armory. Whatever the reason, he couldn't let that gentleman's grandson leave just like that. Choi Yun-chang said, "Just a small gift, but please accept it. This is something your grandfather saved long ago. The crystallization of the Data Group's future technology, St. Petrus V4. It carries the strongest engine developed by the Data Group, with an unofficial world-best top speed of 527.21 km per hour. It also has a stealth function that interferes with all signals, ensuring freedom from GPS and surveillance so missions can be carried out freely." Peter said, "There's really no need for this." The Dako brothers griped, "You're being way too childish." They asked, "Sis, can we return it?" As expected, they were refused. Peter wondered, "What are you still standing around for? Hurry up and get in the car." The Dako brothers started grumbling again at this point. Instructor Oh Guangyu suddenly called, "Glory seniors also want to meet you. After all, you're the first special hires in 4 years. They're surely very curious. Go show them the passion of young blood." Peter was forced to go slowly so as not to lose the Dako brothers. Then the instructor went to inform them. The monster newbies had arrived. This was Glory Club's Gangseo branch, the Hapjeong Yangwang Church. The Dako brothers said helplessly, "Being too popular is exhausting too." Peter saw they all seemed very excited. "Then let's go in. This is the place where revelations descend." Assigning tasks suited to each level for Glory's assassins was called receiving a revelation. Assassins needed to pray to the priest, and the priest would bless the brothers to be victorious in every battle. Li Yuna realized that this was how real assassins took assignments. She too had just learned that lower-level assassins took assignments like this. The Dako brothers eagerly checked the revelation the priest had given. It had only 3 words written on it: fight. The priest smiled and said, "We don't assign tasks to newbies, but we will grant a special reward of delicious holy blood." The next second, the cup of holy blood was splashed hard over Biggie Dako's head. The priest asked, "Does it taste good? We've been waiting for you D-rank trash to show up." Biggie Dako smiled and said, "Some people just have to taste it themselves to know. Are you like that too?" The fight officially began. The Dako brothers said, setting rank aside, "We won't go easy on you just because you're older." The believer scoffed, "D-rank trash who don't understand the situation. What a joke." Biggie Dako said coolly, "Of course we don't understand the situation. After all, we weren't born to be D-rank. We are the Dako brothers who will become S-rank apostles." A mere B-rank acting this arrogant annoyed the Dako brothers. The other assassins saw that this batch of newbies seemed pretty strong. Yuna noticed that, because they were more confident, the Dako brothers were stronger than when they fought Park Sang-do. The believer wondered, "What's going on? Where did the other little guy go?" Suddenly, a hand grabbed the believer's ankles hard from behind. Biggie Dako grinned wickedly and said, "Were you looking for me?" He roared for his younger brother. Junior Dako raised his heavy fist and leaped up. The believer asked disdainfully, "Is your dream to become Peter? At your age, I thought that way too. Since our future stars need to learn real combat properly, I won't be joking around either." Junior Dako's palm was pierced, and Biggie Dako was soon knocked down as well. Yuna was just about to step in to stop it. Glory-affiliated assassin, B rank number 33, Director Jang asked, "How does it feel after seeing a real assassin? That guy struggled his whole life just to reach B rank. For an ordinary assassin, getting that far is like plucking the stars." Glory's D-rank assassins usually handle missions targeting ordinary people, 336 in total. C-rank mainly deals with targets whose trade is violence, such as the underworld, 200 in total. B-rank mainly resolves conflicts that may arise between assassins, 100 in total. A-rank assassins are responsible for carrying out nation-level assassination missions, 30 in total. Once you become an assassin, your hands will be stained with blood for life. You'll rack your brains to become the strongest in the Glory organization. In the end, even if you give up your life and by every means make it to A rank, from S rank onward it's a level absolutely unreachable by effort alone. The 12 disciples standing at the pinnacle of assassins, those are the apostles. The believer teased, "Brats, want me to tell you how to become apostles? You just need to be reborn." The believer's fist slammed viciously into Biggie Dako's head. He told these newbies who dreamed of becoming apostles to go home and nurse from the mothers who don't exist. Yuna couldn't understand. No matter what, There's no need to beat them to that extent, right? At this moment Director Jang recognized Yuna as the former flunky of Octomon. He sneered, "You have neither the ability nor the qualifications to be any kind of assassin." Even a dog passing by would laugh. At that moment a hand clamped tightly around Director Jang's hand. Peter said evenly, "Please don't overstep, Senior." Director Jang was shocked. Why couldn't he break free? He snapped, "You punk, are you trying to pick a fight with me?" Jaiwon had already warned Peter not to be too high profile. A rookie assassin defeating the A-rank Park Sang-do was really outrageous. With Peter's ability, it was only a matter of time before Glory became suspicious of him. That would throw off all his planned targets. To catch Glory off guard, he had to hide under a D-rank identity. Director Jang barked, "The adults are talking, you arrogant brat." Peter told him to go ahead and hit him if he wanted, as long as he took them to the hospital afterward. One of them had a through-and-through wound, and the other had fainted. If they didn't go to the hospital now, it would be dangerous. Peter said sincerely, "Please, Senior." Director Jang said smugly, "Fine then, but it can't just end like this." He ordered them to hand over their service qualification certificates before leaving. He smirked, "Be sure to come reclaim them once you've grown up strong." The four of them left the church in embarrassment like that. Biggie Dako didn't understand. What the heck was that supposed to be? If we say the certificates were lost, Instructor Oh Guangyu will definitely yank all our hair out. Biggie Dako apologized to Yuna and Kim Sun-gyu. "I failed to protect you. As the captain, Biggie Dako, should have only shown you my cool side." Peter put a helmet on him and said, "Let's go, Captain. It's time to go to the cafeteria for a meal." The motorcycle sped along the road. Yuna asked Kim Sun-gyu, "What should I do to become stronger?" Peter wondered, why bother asking something that's useless? Yuna asked in confusion, "Do you not care at all? They just snatched our certificates like that." Peter said blandly, "The law of the jungle is only natural. When you're weak, you need to learn to endure." Late at night, a few believers joked among themselves. "Just thinking about fighting for our livelihood with those Charshlight guys makes me angry." At this moment they discovered the newbie who had come here during the day had appeared here again. Director Jang sneered, "Are you here to get beaten again? Or to repent for sticking your neck out today?" Peter asked coldly, "Did you really have to go that far?" Director Jang wondered, "You brat, haven't you been beaten enough?" Peter stood up and explained. He was here to show them something they'd never seen in their lives, and would never see again, the battle of an apostle. The believer snorted, "Well, you don't see this every day. I've been in this line for 14 years and have never even seen an apostle. Young man, you really don't understand how the world works." He was just about to have Director Jang at his side teach that guy a lesson, when he realized something was wrong. Director Jang was motionless at that moment, because he had sensed danger. In front of him was clearly a D-rank assassin whose name he couldn't even remember. He had no cover and no weapon. Only the rosary beads in his hand, full of openings. But Director Jang didn't know what was going on. Those eyes could not possibly belong to a D-rank punk. The believer asked curiously, "Why are you spacing out? Don't tell me you've been scared stupid by a kid." Director Jang came back to his senses, thinking, "What am I imagining? He's just a brat with a fierce look in his eyes." He said solemnly, "There's an unspoken rule in this industry. If a junior or lower-ranked assassin offends a senior or higher rank, the superior has the right to handle it as appropriate, even execute them on the spot." Director Jang simulated, "If I threw this book over, this brat would probably lift his arm to block, not realizing his flank was already exposed. Then the brat would instinctively bend over and cover the spot that was hit. But my target from the start wouldn't be his flank. It would be the eyes of this reckless brat." In the next second, Director Jang's limbs left his body. Only then did he understand that wasn't an ordinary rosary. Then Director Jang's head also left his body. He snapped back to reality with a start, clutching his neck in terror. The believer wondered, "What on earth are you standing there for?" Director Jang, clutching his neck in fright, understood that he couldn't do it. No matter how he simulated an attack, the result was being killed in an instant by that man. Director Jang had already died thousands of times. Over decades, through hundreds of battles, Director Jang had come to understand one thing. Even without a single move, his intuition told him the man before him was someone he absolutely could not defeat. He didn't understand what was going on. It wasn't just an intimidation that he couldn't overcome, but a presence beyond his comprehension. When Director Jang recalled that he had even slapped this man during the day, he suddenly felt like he didn't want to live anymore. Peter gazed calmly at Director Jang before him. With the slightest raise of his hand, the man panicked and apologized over and over. He begged Peter to forgive what had happened today. But Peter merely patted his cheek lightly. The ability to sense death is the basic literacy of an assassin. In that sense, you have excellent qualifications, senior. Inside the church, the believers were still chiding Director Jang. How could you let that brat go? Director Jang roared, if you don't want to die, shut up. At this moment Jaiwan, annoyed, said, Senior, why did you come here? She was worried that starting a fight this early would expose the entire plan. What then? Peter told her, that won't happen. A B-rank assassin losing to a D-rank assassin, aside from being utterly disgraceful, would make it impossible for him to stay in this circle afterward. Losing to a green kid without even trading blows. If it were you, would you spread that around? Jaiwan was speechless. She'd chased him here out of worry, and all he could do was be snarky. Peter rode off on his motorcycle. The next day, Instructor Oh Guangyu flew into a rage. Your service qualification certificates are equivalent to your lives. How could you lunatics lose those? The Dako brothers were sweating bullets, thinking, we're finished. In their heads they concocted countless unreasonable excuses. Just then a voice called out, brats. Director Jang had actually come here. The Dako brothers asked in a panic, why are you here again? Are you here to duel again? Director Jang was speechless. Were these two idiots going to a rap battle? Why were they talking with a rhythm? He was here today to return the service qualification certificates he'd snatched yesterday. The Dako brothers exclaimed excitedly, I thought you were a jerk, big bro, but it turns out you're a good guy. Director Jang said helplessly that he'd had no choice either. That guy named Kim Sun-yu gave him the creeps. The Dako brothers respectfully bid Director Jang farewell. Now we should give this back to Yuna. But I haven't seen classmate Yuna at all. In the sparring hall at that moment, Yuna was desperately practicing assassination. When facing Park Sang-do, she had been powerless. Even in the church, she could only stand by and watch. Yuna was angry at herself for being so useless. She was still too weak. Yuna knew that at this rate, her younger brother Yujin would be in great danger. Peter asked her, puzzled, what's there to be ashamed of? Peter handed Yuna's certificate back to her, but she felt she wasn't qualified to accept it. Peter asked, is it because of your brother? You feel useless and want to become an ill-suited assassin all for your brother's sake? Yuna snapped, you don't know anything. What gives you the right to say that? Peter didn't know her very well, true, but it wasn't like he knew nothing. For example, your brother isn't your biological brother. Peter asked Yuna, what exactly happened between you and your brother? At the orphanage, Yujin always clung to Yuna to play. He asked Yuna, aren't we family? But at that time Yuna didn't accept the word family. From the day she was born in a subway station locker, she had no family. Yuna should have died right there. But, as misfortune would have it, she was rescued and brought to the orphanage. Although food and clothing were always insufficient, she didn't feel uncomfortable. Whether it was family or friends, Yuna had no intention of forming any ties. She didn't want to be abandoned again. Yuna wanted to remain alone forever and leave this world as soon as possible. Until one time, while carrying out a mission, she was shot. The orphanage could not stop the bleeding and had no blood packs left. Although she could be sent to Yangguang Hospital for treatment, the people at the orphanage planned to simply throw away the worthless Yuna. Precisely because she knew it would be like this, she had wanted to have nothing from the start. This was a cold, indifferent place to begin with. Death was also a kind of release for Yuna. But the teacher said a miracle had happened. After that miracle, Yujin disappeared. Yuna learned from the other orphans that that little guy was particularly persistent. The teacher tried to stop him, but there was nothing to be done. He said he would save his big sister, even if it cost him his own life. After who knows how much blood had been drawn, Yujin asked the teacher, does sister still hurt now? Yuna had originally felt she had no family. She didn't realize there was actually a family member who was always watching over her from the same place. She couldn't understand why Yujin would do that. Now Yujin needed expensive blood coagulants every day. The people at the orphanage had already decided to stop treatment and simply throw him out. Yuna lunged and grabbed the doctor. She pleaded, teacher, don't give up on Yujin. I don't hurt anymore. I can earn money now. I will pay the hospitalization fees, no matter how much. Because I am his sister. That was the first time Yuna had a reason to go on living. So what if we look a little different? I will definitely save my little brother. It seemed Peter had meddled too much. So he prepared to leave and let Yuna continue training. Suddenly Yuna murmured, you're the most formidable person I've ever seen. Please help me become strong. As it happened, Peter had the same idea as she did. Although Yuna had little strength, was naturally of poor physique, was timid, and yet had a fiery temper, these were the worst traits for being an assassin. But Peter knew she possessed the finest eyes an assassin could have. From the very beginning at the Octomon restaurant, to Peter's fight with the Dako brothers, and the fight with Park Sang-do, Yuna's gaze never once left the battle. It was as if she intended to learn every technique used in it. Baseball players who often hit home runs can even see the trajectory of the ball as it comes. Peter dared to guarantee that Yuna's dynamic vision was even better than theirs. In short, there was a weapon that could turn her many shortcomings into strengths. Peter told Yuna, if you can control it well, even without a real teacher you can master it on your own. Because that thing will turn you into a real assassin. Yuna looked doubtfully at the thing in her hand. Cut to the Dako brothers excitedly sniffing the smell of money. After becoming official assassins they'd get 1 million a week. They fantasized about how much they'd receive if they became apostles. Peter knew that sort of thing meant nothing to apostles. Apostles could enjoy anything they wanted. That said, he hadn't seen classmate Yuna in quite a while. The Dako brothers were sure she'd 100% gone to do a part-time job. Right now she was probably cleaning. Cleaning traces at scenes assassins had visited, whether feces or entrails. Yuna didn't find any of it dirty. The Dako brothers were puzzled. Having become official assassins, they could get 1 million won a week even if they did nothing. They couldn't understand why Yuna was pushing herself so hard. Peter realized that such a large sum couldn't possibly be spent by one person alone. It seemed Yuna's younger brother had some unspeakable secret. At that moment the Dako brothers received a message from Yuna. They wondered why she needed a scarf in such a warm spring. Inside an ice plant at -20 degrees, the Dako brothers asked testily, "What are we doing in a place like this?" Yuna said coolly, "Training, of course." The Dako brothers asked curiously, "Is this training to break ice with bare hands or something?" Yuna, helpless, said, "Show them what's in my hand." This was the rope dart Peter had given her then. The rope dart is a representative weapon in martial arts. It attacks by throwing the cord wound around the body toward the enemy. Its force is proportional to its speed. Because it whirls as it is thrown, its destructive power is astonishing. Its greatest advantage is that the enemy doesn't know when or where the dart will fly in. The Dako brothers laughed loudly. What kind of secret weapon is that? You might as well just use a gun. But they had to admit it was indeed impressive. It could shatter such thick ice in an instant. Still, the Dako brothers felt, guns are convenient and can kill in one shot. Why bother training with this? On this, Peter had explained to Yuna. If you want to take out 5 people, with a gun you'd need 5 bullets. But this thing is different. After diligent practice, controlling the rope dart's trajectory, you can wipe them all out in an instant with a single strike. The Dako brothers were shocked. It shattered all the ice in one go. They whispered to each other, planning to look online to see how much a rope dart costs. In the evening, the ice plant's owner, D-rank number 113 assassin Park Bingsu, asked Yuna if her training had gone smoothly. He had seen many people come here to practice breaking ice. But it was the first time he'd seen someone like Yuna shatter all the blocks. At that moment Yuna remembered she hadn't paid for the ice, but Park Bingsu waved it off. He explained, 3 hours ago, your friend came here, paid for the ice, and left. He even gave a full 1 million. And your friend also left this. It was a scar prevention care ointment. A moment later, Yuna left the ice plant. She immediately wanted to thank Kim Sun-gu, but didn't know what to say. Then, gritting her teeth, Yuna directly dialed the number. But the words of thanks at her lips actually turned into asking what today's school cafeteria meal was. Embarrassed, she went to hang up. Before she hung up, Peter congratulated Yuna on obtaining a true weapon. The Dako brothers, practicing the rope dart non-stop at the side, were puzzled. Why couldn't they achieve Yuna's kind of curve throw? Peter understood that the weapon and strength Yuna had always been seeking, unique to her, had in fact been in her hands for a long time. Meanwhile, in a certain secret room, a man raved and shouted, "Come at me together. I'm Park Sang-do." A voice said coldly, "That's troublesome. B rank won't do, C rank even less so. To defeat our A rank Park Sang-do, it really takes an apostle, doesn't it?" A doctor in a white lab coat walked toward the naked Park Sang-do. Park Sang-do was dumbfounded. The cookery in his hand fell to the ground out of his control. The doctor had heard that Park Sang-do loved to gamble. He wanted to make a wager with assassin Park Sang-do, who had once approached S-rank apostle level. Can you win in a match against a true apostle? In Park Sang-do's terrified eyes was reflected the apostle Nathaniel. In the hospital, a little girl cried and fussed, not wanting a shot. The Dako brothers thought, the little lass is still too fragile. She's a long way from becoming an adult. The next second they were trembling and asking, "Nurse, can we have general anesthesia?" Yuna cursed from the side, "Idiots." This was a physical exam that every new assassin had to undergo. They had to undergo all sorts of tests at the Yongguang hospital operated by Glory. But in any case, what worried Peter most was still the blood draw. The reason for drawing blood was simple: to put a leash on the assassins. After all, biometric information like DNA and fingerprints doesn't change even if you become younger. So if someone betrayed the organization and fled, they could be hunted down to the bitter end using this. Sooner or later, Glory would discover that the DNA of the old Peter stored here was the same as the DNA drawn today from the young Peter. In other words, Peter's true identity would be exposed. That night, Peter told Jaiwon he didn't want to sit and wait for death. He had already come up with a way to completely escape Glory's pursuit. Namely, to blow up the hospital outright. Jaiwon snapped, "Please, you crazy old man, say something reasonable. You got younger and now you're lawless? Do you know what that place is?" How could Peter not know? It was the place Glory valued immensely. The Yangwang General Hospital in Seoul. As the largest hospital in Korea run by Glory, although it looked ordinary on the surface, in fact it mainly handled assassinations disguised as medical accidents. It treated injured assassins and hid corpses. It was a hospital dedicated to serving assassins. Peter knew his DNA would be managed by the hospital's data center, so he could only blow up the center. Jaiwon asked, both anxious and angry, "Do you know who is guarding that Yangwang hospital right now?" "It's the Apostle Nathaniel. That guy isn't even human. His code name is Nathaniel. Praised as a God-given gift and a genius doctor, yet he vanished the next year after a medical accident. And just 4 years ago, in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, a police officer, having finished his shift, returned to the station. As he neared the entrance, he saw something abnormal. Someone was drying clothes at the station entrance. But when he got a little closer, he was so frightened his eyes nearly burst. In his shock, he accidentally crashed his car. It turned out that what was being hung at the station entrance wasn't clothing but corpses. This incident also drew an investigation by special forces. When they saw the scene inside the station, they were also shocked. Various guns were scattered on the ground, their barrels all bent. This didn't look like the traces left by a fight between humans at all. The Special Forces squad leader quickly realized something was wrong. Suddenly a large hand reached out from the darkness. A team member was instantly dragged into a gloomy room. After a burst of bone-crushing sounds, the room returned to dead silence. In the moonlight, the ceiling was studded with corpses. A tall, imposing figure slowly emerged. He said in a grim voice, "I want stronger ones." The Special Forces immediately raised their submachine guns and sprayed wildly. And that very day, the 6 Rio de Janeiro gangs that had stood above the law for 30 years, along with the world-class military police, were all wiped out. Peter was a bit skeptical. Can human strength really bend a gun? Jaiwon said confidently, "That file is a high-level secret of the Rio de Janeiro authorities." It's absolutely true. She thought, with that monster of a man at Yangwang Hospital, rather than a frontal breakthrough, it's better to exploit a loophole. Thanks to Jaiwon, Peter thought of a good way to get in. Then Peter asked her a favor. "Could you help me with something?" On the bustling street, people looked quizzically at Peter on the big screen. What Peter asked of Jaiwon wasn't anything big. Just a simple greeting, that's all. On the big screen at Glory headquarters it explicitly stated, on August 24th, Peter will go to find Nathaniel. A top-tier hacker, following Jaiwon's instructions, hacked into Glory's servers and posted that message. But he worried that if Glory caught on, Jaiwon would be in danger. Jaiwon knew that was possible, but she had never seen that reckless man fail at a planned mission in the 50 years he'd been active. Very soon, a large group of D-rank assassins dispatched for the operation to hunt Peter appeared at the hospital. Their combat ability was poor, they were just there as guards. The real fighting force was Nathaniel's private soldiers. They had once been famous assassins in Brazil, at least B-rank. Now here were A-rank assassins and the Apostle Nathaniel. These were sights that D-rank assassins might rarely see in their lifetimes. They hadn't expected to see a battle between apostles in their lifetime. However, they felt Nathaniel would win this time. Although Peter was a legend, they had heard the old man was nearly 70 and in late-stage cancer. At this moment the Dako brothers declared firmly, "This time Peter will definitely win." The assassins were speechless. How can you two be cheering for the target of the manhunt? But they could understand. It was every rookie's goal to become like Peter. In fact, many assassins didn't want the old man Peter to come. His appearance had been exposed, and once he came here it would be absolutely impossible for him to leave alive. At that moment, Peter, as D-rank assassin number 366, was standing together with them. Nathaniel's private soldiers announced, "If you encounter Peter, you are absolutely forbidden to engage him. Approach him as if respectfully, then use the provided tranquilizer gun to sedate him. After all, he's a master who can take down even an elephant in 3 seconds. After spotting the target, immediately hit the nearby emergency bell to report the location. A-rank assassins will go there to support." Peter took these precautions deeply to heart. How interesting. Peter capturing Peter. Now the operation begins. Your beloved Grandpa Peter has arrived. Meanwhile, big shots from all walks of life and country B had heard that Peter had declared war. They heard people were questioning the qualifications of Glory's new boss. The army chief of staff said to Glory's new boss, "If you can't even catch a toothless old tiger, you might as well give up early." The chairman of the world's strongest defense contractor, Choi Yun-chung, stood by in silence without speaking. The new boss of Glory said coldly, "Sorry, I wasn't thoughtful enough. After all, give you old geezers a little bit of courtesy, and you get carried away." The new boss shoved the army chief of staff's head hard into the water. He said in a low voice, "Are you looking down on me? You damned old fart." The new boss was very much looking forward to his own masterpiece. And a showdown with Peter, his father's masterpiece. Meanwhile, Peter grabbed a certain doctor's head. In an instant, there were several crisp cracks from his head. His body crashed heavily to the floor. Then he stood up and said excitedly, "That felt so good." "New young doctor, how do you know this technique?" Peter asked casually. "Do you know if there's a doctor named Na Hyun-il at this hospital?" The assassins sent to the hospital to hunt Peter had all adopted cover identities. The apostle assassin Nathaniel's real name was Na Hyun-il. Peter had to find him. But no one here seemed to have heard the name Na Hyun-il. Peter wondered, did he change his name and appearance and hide? What could be confirmed at present was that Nathaniel was somewhere in this hospital. It seemed it would ultimately turn into a speed contest of who found the other first. At that moment a voice asked Peter, "What are you doing?" The Dako brothers, assassins disguised as patients, urged him, "Hurry up and act already?" Peter asked them, "Where's Yuna?" The Dako brothers said proudly, "She's only ranked 335th. Her rank isn't high enough to get in here. You, number 336, can only be here because you're with us." While Peter was strolling around, they had already turned the lobby upside down. The Dako brothers, seeing Peter as weak, told him, "If there's danger, call us." Just then they exclaimed, "Looks like we've found Peter. He's exactly like the photos." Peter was speechless. "In what way is that like the photos?" The Dako brothers put on an extremely respectful demeanor toward the other party. They whispered, "Grandpa, we'll escort you out." At that moment, an assassin disguised as a young nurse behind Peter asked him, "Do you need a syringe?" Peter smiled and said, "It's okay, it should already have been drawn." He thought to himself, has the hunt for Peter already begun? All the elderly people in the hospital who were around Peter's age were having blood drawn under the pretext of free checkups. The Dako brothers, wanting to quietly take the old man away, tried to get him to keep it down. Suddenly Biggie Dako was bumped by someone. He snapped at the person, "Are you blind?" Only then did he realize it was Yuna, who shouldn't have been able to get in here. Yuna stammered, "It's because my younger brother is hospitalized here." After speaking she walked off without looking back. Biggie Dako chuckled confidently, "What's the matter?" "Scared off by the majesty of my 333rd place." Peter pondered. Why did classmate Yuna come here? Jaiwan, over the earpiece, reminded him, "Now isn't the time to worry about the juniors." She asked, "What's the method to find Nathaniel?" "We've still got nothing so far." Peter understood. Both he and Nathaniel were searching for each other. Under the condition of not exposing his current identity as Kim Sun-gu, what method could he use to flush out Nathaniel? Nathaniel's private soldiers warned Gloria's D-ranks, "If you slack off again, just wait for death." Peter respectfully indicated he would leave quietly. Peter told Jaiwan, "I found it. Since the angler won't show himself, we'll just have to bite the bait on our end. Now it's time to use that. Make preparations, action will begin shortly." Jaiwan laughed. "Our kids should get some long overdue practice, too." A moment later, Peter, ready, walked into the operating room. B-rank assassin Rodrigo asked in puzzlement, "Who are you?" Peter stated that he was D-rank assassin Kim Sun-gu, the lead surgeon in charge today. Rodrigo told him to get out and go find Peter. But the person he wanted wasn't Peter. Peter asked calmly, "Where is the apostle Nathaniel right now?" Rodrigo was puzzled. Why would a mere D-rank speak that name? Peter said coldly, "An assassin asks after someone for only one reason: to take him out." Rodrigo said excitedly, "I was just bored." "Your timing is perfect." A moment later, an assassin hurried over to find the professor. He asked the professor to take a look at what was in his hands. "This is the orthopedic operating room on the 3rd floor of the East Wing." Nathaniel started to laugh. He began counting seconds. "This is the 3rd second, the 5th second, the 7th second, the 9th second, the 10th second. Nathaniel smiled and said, "Well now, in a mere 10 seconds, he took down a B-rank level assassin." Nathaniel pinched to zoom the screen with 2 fingers. He cursed under his breath, "Damn it, that guy Peter really came." Nathaniel asked his subordinates, "Where did Peter go after this?" A subordinate, sweating profusely, explained, "Aside from this video, All surveillance files in the hospital are being deleted in real time. With our technical capability, we simply can't stop it. He humbly begged the professor to spare their lives. Nathaniel said lightly. Mr. Park Sang-do also has a look of anticipation on his face. I can hardly contain my anticipation for Peter's arrival. And Grayson, Carter, Sawyer, and Robert are also waiting for Peter's arrival with the same feeling. Nathaniel didn't know whether Peter would like the VIP seats he had especially kept open. He really wanted to quickly strip the clothes off Senior Peter. Jiwon guessed that Nathaniel must have taken the bait completely. After all, despite arranging so many people, he was still caught off guard. Just now it was merely that the hacker, through technical means, perfectly recreated old Peter's wrinkles and expressions. This time Peter had cast the bait, so the hunters would start setting up an ambush. Yuna was on the rooftop gnawing on bread. She didn't understand why the high-status apostle Nathaniel wanted to seek her out. Yuna worried. Could something about the Octomon incident have been noticed? She understood that at this rate, the friends around her would also be in danger. Especially now, she absolutely must not run into Kim Sun-gu. At that moment a call came from behind Yuna. Peter asked, puzzled, "Classmate Yuna, why can't you meet with me?" Peter held Yuna back and told her not to say strange things. He was just D-rank assassin Kim Sun-gu who came to eat. He had accidentally ordered 2 chickens, so he couldn't finish them. Because it was still early before the appointed time, Peter asked Yuna to keep him company to kill time. "Let's eat together." Yuna thought to herself, if Nathaniel's people discover us like this, we'll both be in danger. So I must refuse him no matter what. Yuna said sternly that she wouldn't eat with him and told him to leave immediately. Peter, a bit helpless, asked her if she shouldn't put down the fried chicken box before saying that. Yuna murmured that she would leave after finishing one piece. Soon a pile of bones appeared by her hand. After finishing the fried chicken, Yuna asked solemnly, "What are you waiting for? Hurry and tell me the real reason you showed up at Yangguang Hospital." Yuna said earnestly, "I know it's hard for you to trust me, because when we first met I was with Octomon. I can tell you have something to do with Grandpa Peter. Although I can't help you find that old grandpa, I can tell you one thing clearly. I'm sorry, Kim Sun-gu. That grandpa was shot protecting me. In other words, he may already have passed away." Peter interrupted Yuna and told her he was looking for someone. Although Peter didn't want to drag her in, as a D-rank Yuna hadn't originally been called in to take part in the hunt, Peter asked Yuna, "It was this person who called you here alone, right? Don't say you don't know." If that was the case, it meant Yuna had definitely met Nathaniel once. Yuna was just about to explain that this person wasn't Nathaniel. From behind, an icy voice called out, "Miss Yuna. To think you're running around without accompanying personnel. I should have told you that that man has already come here, so from now on you are to obediently stay in your ward." Peter's target had finally appeared. The general director of Yangguang Hospital, the Apostle Nathaniel. Nathaniel asked Yuna who this man was. Yuna, nervous, thought that if these two met now, conflict would surely break out. But Peter merely bowed respectfully and greeted the professor. Peter introduced himself as D-rank assassin Kim Sun-gu, dispatched to take part in the operation. He said that to see an apostle like you in his lifetime was truly an honor to his ancestors. He, Kim Sun-gu, would definitely take Peter's head. Please rest assured and leave it to him. Throughout the entire exchange, Peter wore a sycophantic smile. Nathaniel said nothing, coldly staring at the man before him. He then asked Miss Yuna to go to her own room. After the consultation he would send someone to bring Yuna over. Having said that, Nathaniel left. Peter thought to himself that the Apostle Nathaniel was indeed no ordinary person. The hand he had just shaken with him had already started to go numb. Nathaniel told his subordinates to bring him the resume of the person who had captured Park Sang-do that time. His subordinate respectfully handed it to him. But the file placed in his hand slipped and fell straight down. The subordinate hurriedly apologized to the professor. Nathaniel realized it was his own hand slipping. After shaking hands with that D-rank assassin just now, his hand had also started to go numb. Nathaniel was wondering whether to keep that man called Kim Sun-gu by his side. He had a strong feeling that guy would make an excellent specimen. Soon Peter received an invitation to join Nathaniel's entourage. Peter asked Jiwon on the phone, "Don't you think it's funny?" Nathaniel clearly knows Peter has come in, yet he looks like he can't find him no matter what. Jiwon snapped angrily, "Funny my ass. Are you crazy, old man? If you get caught, senior, we'll all be dead." Peter calmly hung up the phone. He still didn't know what an entourage was, but he'd know what it was for once he got there. The doctor told Peter, "You're really moving up for a D rank. The professor usually doesn't choose entourage members." He handed Peter a key card that allowed access to any part of the hospital. He told him, "When serving that gentleman, remember 3 points. First, do not speak before the professor asks. Second, do not question what the professor does. And third, never refuse his favor. Peter didn't understand what favor meant. What could make him so nervous? The doctor urged, let's hurry. The professor doesn't much like waiting. The doctor respectfully said to the professor, as you ordered, we have brought Mr. Kim Sun-gu. Nathaniel said coolly, fortunately, you're not late. Let's begin the consultation now. Peter understood that he wouldn't get through easily this time. Nathaniel's private soldiers were called the Undertakers of Rio de Janeiro. Even the weakest had the strength of a B-rank assassin. They were a band of outsiders steeped in the stench of blood. They were neither Glory's people nor loyal to Glory. They were Nathaniel's legion, existing to follow the king and for the king. The entire hospital was already operating according to Nathaniel's instructions. All entrances had been sealed, and the net was now being efficiently tightened. The blood draws for elderly people of Peter's age had also been completed. Analyzing the results would take about 48 hours. No matter how good Peter was at disguises, there was no way he could fool DNA. The assassin doctors understood. Since he couldn't get out, he would inevitably become a turtle in a jar. Catching him was only a matter of time. And Peter heard their plans loud and clear. However, Peter knew Nathaniel wouldn't be so easily fooled. During the consultation, Nathaniel gently asked about the patient's conditions. He arranged surgical plans as usual. Peter was puzzled. He must have had an agenda in choosing me as entourage. So why hold these meaningless consultations? Suddenly Nathaniel asked Peter, disappointed? As an entourage member yet with nothing to do. Is it because I haven't shown the bearing of an apostle? He told Peter to follow him, saying there was something he wanted to show him. Yet whether on the blueprints or the hospital maps, this place wasn't marked. What floor were they on now? What was at the end of the stairs? What was there? Peter had no idea. Peter began to wonder what exactly Nathaniel wanted to show him. Peter soon found out. Nathaniel said proudly that this was the place where he realized his ideals. This guy had actually done something that enraged both gods and men. He asked Peter whether he was interested in biology. Upon learning that Peter had a basic understanding, he smiled and said, that will make communication much easier. Darwin once said that all organisms evolve by natural selection. So-called evolution is brought about by chance, with no reason to weigh better or worse. But Nathaniel said coldly, Darwin was wrong. That evolution is not caused by deities, nature, or chance, but by my selection. Nathaniel believed that, compared to the futile act of forcibly saving the frail and chronically ill, the kind of treatment that reduced weaknesses, preserved strength, and allowed it to develop was more valuable. He was just about to explain the reason he had taken notice of Peter, when a piercing red alarm suddenly blared. A broadcast announced that a test subject was escaping in the underground ward. All researchers in the ward were asked to lock their doors until the security team had finished suppressing the incident. The broadcast warned that the A1 receptors injected into the subject had been activated to Phase 4. The berserk subject was uncontrollable. Even if riddled with tranquilizer darts, the subject's strength would still be immense. The passageways to the surface were about to close. At the subject's speed, it would definitely be able to reach the surface before the doors closed. But suddenly the wall beside him exploded. Nathaniel's hand burst through the wall and clamped down on the subject. He said in a low voice, we are discussing something very important. How can we be inconvenienced by a mere test subject? From the other side of the wall came the sounds of bones cracking in wails. Soon everything returned to dead silence. Nathaniel apologized to Peter. Now let's get back to the main topic. I like strong people, so the muscles and tendons of the strong, I have torn them open, peeled them off, flayed them, and studied them, because there is a man I very much wish to surpass. Mr. Kim Sun-gu, I see potential in you. There aren't many who possess great strength at such a young age. I want to see the outcome of my evolution through you. How powerful you will become after evolving. Just thinking about it is thrilling, isn't it? Please accept my favor. With my abilities, I can easily make you an A rank, or even a powerhouse like an apostle. Jaiwan, over the earpiece, was astonished. Nathaniel is extremely dangerous. He can actually punch through a wall with his bare hands. But Peter understood that what was even more astonishing was that he could sense movement on the other side of the wall and precisely seized the moment to crush the subject's skull. Seeing how dangerous it was, Jaiwan asked, Senior, how about you call it off now and get out? But getting Peter to give up was impossible. For he was also extremely curious about the source of that power. Jaiwan said helplessly, who could stop a stubborn old man? But Senior, didn't your blood get taken along with the elder's blood for analysis? You'll be exposed sooner or later. Peter told Jaiwan he had a way. 48 hours had already passed. The results should now be in that guy's room. He planned to use this all-access card for entourage members to swap out the results directly. Jaiwan was annoyed. What if you're discovered, Senior? Peter knew that wouldn't happen, because he had time to spare. It was now 2:53. During the time he'd been following Nathaniel on rounds, he had precisely grasped how long the consultations took. So the time left for Peter was a full 4 minutes and 30 seconds. He only needed to swap the results within that window. Nathaniel's consultations proceeded normally. All the patterns were as usual. He asked his subordinates, "Have the comparison results for the elder's blood samples come out?" A subordinate replied, "The results have already been placed in your room. But we compared all the samples and didn't find any elder matching Peter." Nathaniel found it interesting. This shouldn't be possible in principle. A subordinate suggested, "Could Peter be hiding in someplace like the ceiling?" Nathaniel told him, "Use a little imagination. Is there a possibility Peter is no longer as we remember?" Peter had timed it and arrived at his office to steal the files, but he hadn't expected him to come back early. Nathaniel asked coldly, "Why would a mere D-rank assassin enter a room when its master isn't present? You need to explain your reason for being here." Peter knew that for the past 2 days Nathaniel had been doing consultations following the same patterns, yet there were clearly still 2 minutes and 30 seconds left before the consultations should have ended. Peter instantly realized that those things might have been done deliberately for him to see. Whether it was urging him to accept the favor, or proudly showing off the secrets hidden underground, were they all bait thrown out to make him believe he had been toyed with? And Nathaniel had been suspecting Peter from the start. Several countermeasures flashed through Peter's mind in an instant. Then he smiled and said he was here to hand this over to you. He didn't even know what it was. Dr. Hong had told him to bring it to the professor immediately. Nathaniel suddenly grabbed Peter as he tried to leave after making the delivery. He noticed faint traces of flipping in the documents. He demanded, "Why do you want to know about the blood samples of those elders recorded here?" Kim Sun-gu, who didn't even know what this file was, "What exactly were you curious about inside?" "Hiding in my room. What exactly did you want to look at?" "If you can't answer, then there is only one truth." Peter cut Nathaniel off and said earnestly, "Even if tone, behavior, appearance, and expression can deceive everyone, DNA can absolutely not be hidden." He believed that if Peter couldn't be caught now, it meant he might no longer be the old man we knew. So he had overreached himself. His desire to catch Peter so badly had made him lose his head for a moment. Peter sincerely apologized to the professor. He ought to have obtained the professor's permission before bringing it up. Peter understood that if he suspected him, then he could in turn make use of that. Sure enough, Nathaniel told Peter to raise his head. He said lightly, "You've gotten something on you here. It's good to work diligently, but don't lose the bearing of a glory member. You may go." Peter thanked the professor and turned to leave. Nathaniel hadn't expected that what he had just felt was actual skin. Not a human skin mask or makeup, but the skin of a truly young man. On that basis, he could rule out the possibility that Kim Sun-gu was Peter. Nathaniel crushed the tablet in his hand. He wondered, "Damn it, Peter, where on earth are you hiding now?" This man is the champion of the underground coliseum, the maniac. His specialty is lethal kicks. He is recognized as the holder of the world's strongest leg. One day, Nathaniel asked the maniac, "Is that true? Are you really the one with the world's strongest leg?" He severed the head of the man hailed as the world's strongest leg. He had the hardest fists in the world. When he traded punches with Nathaniel, he ended up a cripple. There was also a world-class mafia. Nathaniel took every last one of them and pinned them into the ceiling. He crushed all the strong ones in this world. Yet before they died, those people all said to Nathaniel, "You can never become the strongest, unless that man named Peter is no longer alive." Nathaniel had heard this name so many times he was sick of it. He wondered, who exactly is Peter? What exactly must I do to meet him? To become the strongest man in the world, I must meet Peter. Nathaniel thought, the last person to have seen you should know where you are. He told his men to bring that woman over. Soon, the A-rank Undertaker Santos found Yuna. He ordered Yuna to go see the professor at once. The Dako brothers nearby were shocked. What on earth is Yuna's background? Nathaniel said calmly, "Miss Yuna, you should be the first to survive under a powerhouse that even apostles struggle to fight. At first I thought Peter let you go on a whim. But you even survived after crossing hands with the A-rank Park Sang-do. You clearly have nothing special. How did a mere D-rank assassin survive?" Yuna thought he had no evidence, so she just needed to keep pretending she knew nothing. Nathaniel suddenly pressed her. "Had a miracle occurred to you, Yuna?" In fact, the apostles, himself included, all had a hypothesis. Namely, that from the Octomon base to Park Sang-do's secret room, Miss Yuna received Peter's help. As the price for his help, she made some sort of deal with Peter. An unfortunate girl from an orphanage, with nothing but your body, what could someone like you possibly offer Peter? Miss Yuna, Did you really become a double agent? Nathaniel cut off Yuna, who was trying to explain, and said, "It's all right. I know you're also not acting of your own free will. After all, you can't leave your younger brother to die alone. I've heard your brother Eugene has had hemophilia for a long time, tormented by complications. The last 3 years of Eugene's life should be very hard, right? But I can save your brother. With a serum injection developed by our Yangwang hospital worth 4.5 billion. With a single shot, he'll be cured." Saying this, a smart Miss Yuna should know whom to help, right? Peter said he would come to see me on the 24th. No matter what he asked you to do, Miss Yuna, you only need to ask him to meet at 2 o'clock at the hospital lobby's clock tower to talk. Nathaniel reminded her, Miss Yuna, earning 4.5 billion in 3 years is absolutely impossible. If you want to save your brother, help me get Peter. This is a win-win deal. Nathaniel said coolly, "First, through this treatment prescription, I'll make space for you in the hospital." Yuna hadn't yet realized what he meant by that, when a wave of searing pain shot through her wrist. Nathaniel had crushed the bones in her wrist. Nathaniel said coldly, "In my hospital, those without an illness cannot be hospitalized. If you refuse my proposal, you'll find out who will be the one to receive this treatment prescription next. Then, see you in the consultation room. I look forward to your good news, Miss Yuna." Yuna was assigned to Ward 604. She understood that if Nathaniel knew it had been Kim Sun-gu helping her all along, then she, her brother, and Kim Sun-gu would all be dead. But as long as she did well, Eugene could live on. She didn't know what to do. At this moment someone called from outside the door, "Patient in room 604. Peter smiled and said, "It's time for your shot." Yuna was startled. "Are you crazy? Why did you come here?" Peter said, "Because it's time for the National Singing Contest broadcast, so I came to watch." Yuna snapped, "What kind of joke is this?" Peter looked puzzled. "Yuna, why are you always shooing me away? Is it because of Nathaniel? By the way, what happened to you? I'm your teacher, but I don't recall breaking my student's arm." Peter told Yuna to tell him who did it. Her expression instantly fell. Yuna asked Peter what he would be doing on the 24th. She told Peter to go to the clock tower at 2 on the 15th, claiming she had something to tell him. This was the best choice Yuna could make now. From her expression and her injuries, Peter could more or less infer what had happened. So he agreed to it. Yuna's tears fell onto the photo of her and her brother. She asked the Yuna in the photo, "Is it right for me to do this? This is all I can do." The 24th soon arrived. Nathaniel had waited a long time for this day, because today was the day Peter had promised to come find him. Nathaniel already couldn't wait to see him. So he asked Miss Yuna, "Where is Peter now?" Yuna was silent for a moment. She told Nathaniel he should be on his way. The clock tower's hand soon pointed to 2 o'clock. A trace of daze crossed Yuna's face. That night, Eugene called her. After looking at Yuna's profile picture, Eugene excitedly asked, "Sis, do you have 3 boyfriends?" Yuna explained helplessly, "They're my friends." Eugene wanted to play soccer with his sister's friends. He also wanted to go with them to watch the international tournament 3 years from now and cheer for the country together. Yuna promised that she would definitely take him then. But Eugene refused. He really didn't like flying, so he wouldn't go after all. He thought plane tickets were really too expensive. Yuna told the kid not to worry about money. Worry less and just get ready to enjoy the game. "Sis, I've already found a way. The doctor said the newly developed treatment works especially well. Just 1 injection and you'll be cured, so don't talk so pessimistically." After that, Yuna, enduring intense pain, used being sleepy as an excuse, said goodnight to Eugene, and hung up. She had no other way. She could only do what she believed was best. So she prayed, "Kim Sun-gu, you must keep your promise." The time on the clock tower had already passed 2. The smile on Nathaniel's face gradually faded. He asked Miss Yuna, "Why didn't Peter come?" The place Nathaniel and Yuna had agreed upon was the clock tower in the hospital lobby. But at that moment Peter was standing under the clock tower in the park, wondering why Yuna was late. After all, that day Yuna had specifically emphasized it was the park's clock tower. Yuna understood that if Nathaniel learned it was Kim Sun-gu, not Peter, who took down Octaman, then Kim Sun-gu might be as good as dead. Right now the registration counter, the information desk, the lobby, were all filled with Nathaniel's men. No matter how strong Kim Sun-gu was, coming here would be far too dangerous. So Yuna hoped Kim Sun-gu would just run. Although, from the moment the suspicious Kim Sun-gu appeared, Yuna had never set aside her doubts about him. It was the first time Yuna learned how happy it could be to eat with someone. The first time to share joyful moments with someone. And to rely on someone in a moment of crisis. And besides, Sun-gu, you were also the first to seriously think about me. To figure out what I'm good at. So how could I possibly betray someone like that? Nathaniel asked coldly. Miss Yuna, what is going on? Yuna said in a trembling voice, I haven't seen that Grandpa Peter since that day. I lied only because Mr. Nathaniel said he would medicate my brother. I'm sorry. With a thud, Yuna fell to her knees. She said she truly could do anything. She was not only good at cleaning but was training hard, so she begged him not to touch her brother. Nathaniel said in a low voice, Miss Yuna, in the end you still failed to bring Peter. It's a pity, but there's nothing to be done, and I can only get rid of you. Since you couldn't bring Peter, it means you've lost your value. At that moment the fire alarm suddenly blared. The broadcast announced, all medical staff and patients, do not panic, evacuate quickly. The Dako brothers also rushed outside to evacuate. All the hospital's emergency exits closed simultaneously. The already escaped Dako brothers were baffled. What's going on? Meanwhile, there was still a large crowd inside the hospital. Nathaniel wondered why there was no smell of smoke for a fire. He told his men to go check the situation. Yuna also wondered how a fire could have started so suddenly. Suddenly the broadcast asked, Student Yuna, why are you crying? Haven't I already arrived? Yuna was shocked. Kim Sun-gu, how are you here? Peter countered, didn't we agree to meet in front of the clock tower? Peter understood, if there were a fire in the hospital, ordinary people would flee to a safe place. But you still haven't run, which means you are neither real medical staff nor patients, but killers lying in wait here for a chance to kill me. Nathaniel puzzled over the me in Kim Sun-gu's words. He asked whether Mr. Sun-gu had come to save Miss Yuna. Nathaniel had long known that Kim Sun-gu was no ordinary person. So he had become interested in Kim Sun-gu. But standing here was the Undertakers Guild of Rio de Janeiro. In the distant slums of Rio de Janeiro, the children here generally didn't live to grow up. Most of them would die early. Because people died there every day, it was called the Village of Undertakers. The law there was the law of the jungle. Survival of the fittest. Kidnapping, drugs, illegal trades. The Undertakers Guild, which controlled all the dark industries, had furthermore become the strongest organization in Brazil. And here today were the strongest 100 survivors from there. Nathaniel asked, how about it? Do you have the confidence to take on 100? Mr. Sun-gu, as I said before, I see potential in you. Meaning you are a tiger cub. If you grow up under my care, you'll surely become the strongest, unstoppable predator. But as you are now, you can't beat the beasts. So stop playing childish friendship games. Submit obediently to me, and I will cultivate you well. Peter didn't answer him. He just shrugged. Nathaniel understood what that meant. Two B-rank assassins from the Undertakers Guild leaped down. They shouted with disdain, you won't live long, you D-rank tiger cub. But in an instant, the two arrogant B-rank assassins were silenced. This scene shocked everyone present. Nathaniel hadn't expected that Kim Sun-gu could take out opponents attacking from above without even looking, and strike directly at their vitals. Peter asked Nathaniel, how about now? Do you still take me for a tiger cub? Nathaniel knew precisely how long it takes for a human to die. If a vein is severed, it's 1 minute 12 seconds. If an artery is severed, 40 seconds. If the carotid artery is severed, only 12 seconds. Nathaniel posited, it takes 1 minute to take down one person. There are 100 assassins here. He was very curious whether Mr. Kim Sun-gu could last these 100 minutes. Facing a whole horde of assassins pouring in, Peter's expression didn't change in the slightest. None of these guys could withstand even a single exchange with him. They were far too weak. But there were simply too many of them. Yuna thought to herself that this was bad. At this rate, Sun-gu would be in danger. Peter was gradually forced into a dead corner. The enemies didn't care even when they saw their companions die and continued to press aggressively. The assassin sneered, a hothouse Asian brat like you surely doesn't understand that life and death are everyday fare to us. Nathaniel said coolly, Mr. Sun-gu, while you are indeed fast, does constant evasion still count as fighting? Besides, it seems you have nowhere left to dodge. Mr. Sun-gu, what do you plan to do now? Not only is your rear cut off, there are dozens more blocking you in front. Do you have a way to deal with that? Peter muttered, there really are so many. What should I do? But this was just to his liking. Peter opened the fire hydrant beside him. The assassins wondered what he was trying to do. Peter quickly pulled out the hose inside. A high-pressure stream blasted toward the assassins. Peter smiled and said, how can you be surprised so soon? I haven't even really started yet. Suddenly, a strange sound came from the cabinet. The water stopped flowing through the hose. Looks like this damned sprinkler game can't continue. Nathaniel praised him. Mr. Sun-gu, you're very clever, but a water cannon can't spray someone to death. Peter sneered. Didn't I just say? I haven't even really started. Now comes the main act. The defibrillator's savage current rode the water and shocked the assassins. In a flash a swath of them collapsed. Nathaniel applauded, astonished that Mr. Sungu was truly formidable. He thought he let himself be driven into a corner in order to use the water cannon. Using the water cannon was to set up the manual defibrillator. Mr. Sungu is more and more compelling the more I watch. Nathaniel then revised himself and said, if Mr. Sungu needed 100 minutes, since the head count has already been had, you probably need only an hour more. Peter found it odd. Nathaniel actually thought it would take him 2 hours to deal with them. Peter came up with a good idea. He drew 2 strokes on a clipboard. He tossed it in front of the opponents. The assassins wondered what that meant. Peter said quizzically, you people wearing doctor's coats can't read this? Excessive blood loss from a carotid artery stab. That will be the cause of death for all of you. The assassins realized, too late, this man was not someone they could handle. Yuna had heard of the deeds of the world's strongest man. Peter was that legend. But he looked like an even more ordinary old man than she'd imagined. Although he fought with all his might, that seemed to be all. Nothing like the legendary figure who once fought 1,000 alone. At that time Yuna realized, rumors are not to be trusted. But if there were a 1 in 10,000 chance that the rumors about Peter were true, then Yuna felt he would look exactly like the man before her now. Nathaniel couldn't help but laugh. He exclaimed excitedly, Mr. Sungu, you truly are worthy of my choice. You actually took out 100 assassins in just 13 minutes. Peter said calmly, sorry, I'm not done yet. Aren't you still alive? Pick one, should I go up, or will you come down? Peter's words were cut off, because Nathaniel jumped down. He said in a low voice, Mr. Sungu, does that count as an answer to you? Nathaniel was truly curious. Mr. Sungu, how are you so strong at such a young age? What exactly are you? Are you an assassin who has been working abroad all along? But your age doesn't match. Peter cut off Nathaniel's rambling and asked if he knew one thing. People without confidence talk especially much. Nathaniel laughed and said, I think you're the one who should understand something. Having guts and being arrogant are 2 different things. Nathaniel's fist appeared before Peter in an instant. Even after blocking, Peter was still blasted into the air. Peter was shocked. What tremendous power was this? He backed off to steady himself. Peter began to wonder how Nathaniel could have such strength. Could he really be considered human? Yuna realized that at this rate Sungu would be in danger. He had already exhausted his strength taking down the 100 earlier. There was a real chance Sungu would lose. Nathaniel cackled, Mr. Sungu, tired already? The show's just getting started. He used 2 assassins' corpses as cover. Then Peter's body suddenly sank. Nathaniel raved, I won't care about your fatigue. Peter was astonished that Nathaniel could fling him with just one hand. He had never felt such power from a human being. Where on earth did that guy's strength come from? Yuna feared that Nathaniel's power exceeded common sense and that Sungu would be killed. Just then she noticed the elevator was descending. Nathaniel said coldly, Mr. Sungu, you're nimble, so I thought about it. If we fight in a confined space, you won't be able to run, will you? Nathaniel's judgment was correct. Being in the elevator would indeed hamper Peter's evasion. Nathaniel goaded him, Mr. Sungu, don't lose heart. Weren't you quite bold a moment ago? I thought fighting you would be fun. But like this, how are you any different from the others? The elevator resounded with booming blows. Fist marks began to appear on the iron walls. The heavy steel cable suddenly snapped. The elevator began to plummet. It only stopped when it crashed into the bottom level. As the dust gradually settled, Nathaniel had many questions for Kim Sungu. I clearly set a meeting with Peter today, so why did you come? What exactly is your relationship with Peter? Mr. Sungu, why aren't you speaking? Could it be you're already dead? That result would be quite normal. Those who fight me, Nathaniel, rarely escape death. After all, I never show mercy. But the more I think about it, the more vexing it is, Mr. Sungu. Your face is actually unscathed. And those ferocious assaults of mine just now were all evaded by you. Space can't constrain you, Mr. Sungu. Peter apologized to Nathaniel. Indeed, that was my mistake. Because fighting you was too boring, I accidentally fell asleep just now. You said just now you never show mercy, right? Then I understand. Come again, I'll get serious with you too. Nathaniel suddenly exploded into action. Peter knew he was using his full strength this time. Their fists crashed together viciously. The hacker on the monitoring side asked Jaiwin, Kim Sunju is at a disadvantage now. Aren't you worried? This reminded Jaiwin of an interesting story she'd heard long ago. About 55 years ago, the assassin's teacher asked the first group of children who survived the orphanage, what do you think is the root of strength? Each child had their own idea. Some said it was skills that could overcome anything. Others said a powerful physique. But the young Peter said nothing. The teacher said, "None of your answers are exactly wrong. Then try to break this stone. You've made it through Hell Week. This should be nothing for you, right?" The children all thought it impossible. Smashing such a big stone simply wasn't something a human could do. At that moment someone noticed that dumbass Peter actually wanted to practice using those shabby wraps. They mocked that even if Peter punched for 100 days, he couldn't possibly break it. And so Peter punched from morning to night. The days passed one by one like that. The others scoffed. That kid Peter said he was going to train, but he hasn't shown up for a month. They said the stone hadn't been broken at all. The fact that the teacher favored Peter alone already made the others very upset. Then a girl exclaimed, "Look over there." The boys who had just been sneering broke into a cold sweat at what they saw next. It turned out this stone was newly brought in. Those others were all stones Peter had smashed over the past month. Peter and Nathaniel fell into a standoff. He asked Sung-gu, "Do you know the limit of human strength?" The human strongman famed for the greatest power can lift as much as 524 kilograms. Even someone like that can't beat me, Nathaniel. So what's going on here? Mr. Sung-gu, are you really human? Is this truly the power of someone who hasn't received favor? Peter asked Nathaniel in return, "Have you ever been hit and killed by a car?" He wondered why he suddenly asked that. Peter explained, "Because my knife hand hurts more than being hit by a car." Nathaniel was blasted away by a tremendous force. He didn't understand. What was going on? What on earth was attacking him? How could a human possibly throw a punch of this magnitude? Peter began to ready his knife hand. Then he struck Nathaniel's head with a vicious blow. He instantly fell still. The hacker exclaimed excitedly, "Sung-hu won." Nathaniel smashed headfirst into such a thick experimental tank. He probably won't survive. But suddenly he realized something was wrong. Peter also couldn't figure out what was going on with Nathaniel. He said coolly, "Mr. Sung-gu, you must be baffled as to why I'm still alive. And why your hands are covered in wounds from striking me. Do you remember what I said then? Human evolution is chosen by me, Nathaniel. Mr. Sung-gu, be my first public subject." Nathaniel took off his shirt. Peter was shocked. What on earth had this cruel man done to his own body? Nathaniel said proudly, "This is the result of my evolution. Have you heard the term anti-fragility? If you can't kill me, then the pain you inflict on me will only make me stronger. Muscles become denser during the healing process after being torn, and I developed a drug that can drastically shorten the healing time. So the more times I'm attacked, the stronger my body becomes. Mr. Sung-gu, you understand what that means now, right? In other words, the probability that you can beat me is almost zero." Nathaniel smashed what he had grabbed down onto the ground. The billowing dust gradually dispersed. Nathaniel laughed and said, "No one has ever survived after being seized by me, yet you escaped. I suppose I should congratulate you, Mr. Sung-gu." Nathaniel thought to himself how this could be impossible. He had clearly clutched his throat just now. But within 0.1 seconds, in just a fleeting instant, he shoved his hand in and created a gap to escape. In that instant, Kim Sung-gu made all the judgments and ultimately shielded his neck to evade. Nathaniel was incredulous. Is this a reaction speed a human could have? Peter understood that although he had narrowly avoided the attack, with just that one grab the back of his hand hurt as if it had been nailed through. Peter was now certain. If he got caught by those hands, he would definitely die. Nathaniel raved, "Come again, let me see more. I've seen your ability chart, Mr. Sung-gu. The capabilities you've shown surpass those of ordinary A-rank assassins. But even so, you absolutely cannot defeat me, because right now I am still evolving. So while you still can, beg me like a dog. Perhaps I'll be magnanimous and forge you into the coolest evolved being." Peter was silent for a moment. Then he raised his hands. The hacker watching the monitors was startled that Sung-gu seemed to be surrendering. If so, they would be exposed as well and would have to immediately abandon Kim Sung-gu. Nathaniel laughed and said, "From the first time we met, I felt you were different from the others. Cast aside distractions and walk a new path with me. I will fully realize your desire for power." Seeing Kim Sung-gu's movements, Nathaniel asked in puzzlement, "What are you doing? What else could I be doing? A child with no manners will only behave after a good lesson." Nathaniel was driven mad by this. He roared that a lesson was indeed in order. The two charged out at the same time. Peter's fists pounded again and again into Nathaniel's abdomen. Jaiwan hurriedly asked what was happening, and the hacker wasn't quite sure either. He only knew this wasn't a fight between normal humans. Nathaniel had to admit that Sung-gu was truly strong, completely different from anyone he had faced so far. But the unchanging fact was, even after such a fierce fight up to now, his body was still evolving. This is the first time I, Nathaniel, have experienced such an exhilarating battle. How strong, how indestructible can I become? But Nathaniel still had an unresolved question. Although Mr. Sungu had proven himself very strong, he kept feeling there was some secret beneath Mr. Sungu's ability chart that he couldn't fathom. Nathaniel couldn't understand. Where did Kim Sungu get the nerve to fight him to the end? Why is the resolve in your eyes unwavering? There should be only one answer. Nathaniel said coldly, Mr. Sungu, I have decided that even if you beg like a dog now, it's useless. I intend to study you thoroughly, from every bone to every cell. I will disassemble everything and study it. What a pity, the last thing you'll see before you die will be my fist, Nathaniel's. Jaiwan on the monitoring side shouted in terror, Senior. But Peter only asked Nathaniel coolly, you're so powerful because you've greatly shortened muscle healing time with drugs, right? So I've been waiting for you to become stronger than ever. Because when your fully developed muscles become so dense they compress all your bones and nerves, you will become unable to move. Nathaniel cursed inwardly that in his intoxication with the fight, he had failed to notice his body gradually stiffening. Yet this man, in less than 10 minutes, had discovered the side effects of the favor that even he himself hadn't noticed. Peter smiled and said, Apostle Nathaniel, the outcome is that you've lost. Nathaniel was unwilling to believe it would end like this. He had killed so many to gain this power. He endured so much pain from the drugs. Only with great difficulty had he forged himself into the perfect human. And yet I, Nathaniel, am going to die at the hands of this brat? Nathaniel grinned. He hadn't expected he would use the rainbow drug hidden in his shoe. Although this drug has the side effect of causing muscles to melt, it can turn him into an invincible organism. Mr. Sungu, you have the right to witness the result of my evolution. 3 minutes from now I will disappear from this world. Before that, I'll send you to hell, Mr. Kim Sungu. Nathaniel felt a power he had never felt before. Peter quickly made ready as well. He would receive the final blow of an apostle-class assassin. Nathaniel was now burning himself. He understood this was his final evolutionary state. This power was the highest realm he could reach. Even so, Sungu could still predict all of his attacks. The battle Nathaniel felt now was as splendid as fighting 1 against 1,000. He finally understood what the strangeness he'd felt from the start of the fight was. The human before him, named Kim Sungu, possessed an ability that surpassed the narrow hexagon that rated him D rank. This was the kind of ability chart for humans like Nathaniel. He realized that Kim Sungu had an ability. That was a towering wall he could never surmount in his entire life. Nathaniel couldn't fathom where someone as young as Kim Sungu got such experience. The feeling he gave was like the one he had chased his whole life, said to have reached that unattainable realm above the 9th heaven. That is, the divine realm he had always sketched only in his imagination. The legendary man, Peter. In 2003, a certain boy was taking an oath. He solemnly swore to devote his entire life to the service of humanity. He would heal and save lives without shame to his conscience and character. No matter the threats he faced, he would never use his medical knowledge for things that violate human ethics. The others taking the oath were amazed. Was this really something a human could do? Because the person on stage taking the oath was Yangguang Medical University's freshman representative, Na Hyun-il, the youngest genius freshman in the med school's history. But he did not feel happy. On Christmas of 1994, the frail and sickly Na Hyun-il lay in his hospital bed as usual. Santa Claus comforted him, saying, being frail means you are a child chosen by God. Na Hyun-il wondered why frailty would be chosen. If so, there must be a reason. What could it be? At that moment, a science program on TV was explaining the mystery of evolution. The crayfish grows larger and stronger by self-initiated molting. The word self-initiated etched itself deeply into Na Hyun-il's heart. He wondered, could this be homework left to me by God? Perhaps he wants me to accomplish what humanity has failed to do. Wouldn't it be enough for humans to become stronger like animals? So Na Hyun-il decided to be the first to do it. In 2012, someone who'd been shot was brought to the hospital, urgently needing surgery. People heard that person was a serial killer. No one would want to save someone like that. So thinking that way, they felt Dr. Na Hyun-il was truly remarkable. That kind of person is a real doctor. Na Hyun-il didn't get it. What is everyone fussing about? This is just a profession. You who are hung up on moral codes are the strange ones. Yet although he had performed countless surgeries, it was the first time he'd felt this. Faced with a powerful physique, Na Hyun-il felt a surge of excitement. He had never seen such a strong body. He wondered how this man had it. In what way exactly he differed from himself. Na Hyun-il was so curious that he wanted to dissect it immediately. His heart pounded as he reminded himself he was a doctor and couldn't do that. But then he thought, precisely because I am a doctor, I have the duty to preserve humanity and make it evolve. Countless thoughts flashed through Nahayaniel's mind. He had clearly been doing an organ suturing operation just now. But when he came to, he found he had actually opened the skull. Nahayaniel, terrified, turned and fled. Afterward, having nothing, he hid in a city in South America. He chose that place because there were many subjects for research there. Then he observed phenomena and verified his research results. Then took down the strong to prove his own growth. Then continually refined all his own shortcomings. Ultimately, without borrowing his parents' DNA, a new human was born, Nathaniel. Nathaniel's life should have been like that. Yet now he was being crushed like a dead dog. As a genius physician, he knew his spine was completely shattered and all the muscles of his body had melted. Nathaniel had truly reached the point where he couldn't move even a single finger. Peter warned him not to move, or he would only die faster. Nathaniel pleaded, "Just tell me one thing. I poured in 30 years of effort, endured countless hard days to make myself stronger. And you, Mr. Kim Sun-gu, what kind of effort did you make? No matter how I think about it, I can't accept this outcome." Peter said lightly, "I already understand the obsession with which you grew. But effort like yours, I have kept up for a full 65 years. Nathaniel could not believe it, murmuring, 65 years, over and over. He seemed to see the shadow of the man he had dreamed of. Nathaniel smiled and said, "Although there are many things about you that even doctors cannot understand, I have at last seen you before I died, Peter." Nathaniel slowly closed his eyes. Thus ended the battle that erupted at Yongguang Hospital. The Brazilian assassins, including Nathaniel, were annihilated. The information on Glory's assassins within the hospital was also deleted, yet in the end, something remained. On the way back to school, the Dako brothers asked the teacher a curious question. Shouldn't we be promoted to C rank? The two of them were still doing immersive acting with plaster casts and bandages. The Dako brothers, who had escaped from the start, said excitedly to the teacher, "You didn't even see what intense action we had inside with the Brazilian assassins." Seeing no reaction from Yuna, they took it as tacit approval of what they'd said. Peter glanced sideways at Yuna. Things had been resolved smoothly, and she should have been happy. Yet for some reason Yuna couldn't feel happy at all. Nathaniel had originally promised her he could cure her younger brother with a serum injection worth 4.5 billion that the genius physician Nathaniel had developed. Peter asked lightly, "Yuna, are you in a bad mood because of your brother?" Yuna argued that it was because she hadn't eaten in the cafeteria for days and was missing it. She knew that since Nathaniel had already destroyed the serum, there was no use thinking about it. Peter encouraged her, "Yuna, you will definitely find another way." Yuna thanked him a bit absent-mindedly. Before long, the car returned to the school without incident. Biggie Dako remarked that the taste back home was indeed the best. Junior Dako was puzzled. "We didn't even go abroad." The teacher told everyone to stop chatting and not be late for school tomorrow. Peter suddenly asked, "Yuna, aren't you going to take that bundle? Maybe Yujin will like it." Yuna asked in confusion, "How do you know the name Yujin?" Puzzled, she opened the box. Then Yuna's eyes gradually grew moist. Her voice trembling, she asked, "Sungu, how did you get this?" Peter said lightly, "Fortunately, that guy Nathaniel didn't actually destroy the serum." Yuna didn't know what to say. She only knew that her younger brother could be saved. Meanwhile, in Yongguang Hospital, a subordinate reported to the boss of Glory that the information had been sealed and that what happened here hadn't spread to the outside. The subordinate still couldn't believe that these were actually traces of a human battle. The boss asked coldly whether it was Peter. The subordinate said that Peter's face had been captured clearly on the hospital surveillance. The boss asked again, "Even so, did no one see him with their own eyes? Was there not even footage of him entering or leaving the hospital?" The subordinate answered, cold sweat streaming, "Yes. Like seeing a ghost." At that moment a chilling voice asked, "Did you just say, ghost?" The subordinate explained in terror that that wasn't what he meant. Then he howled as if he really had seen a ghost. In an instant, countless wounds appeared on his body. The newcomer demanded, "You dare say Peter is a ghost? How dare you talk about ghosts in front of me?" She asked the boss bluntly, "I killed your subordinate. Won't you be angry?" The boss smiled and said, "How could I?" The other said coldly, "That bastard Nathaniel actually died before the new apostle completed training. How hateful. Looks like I'll have to teach Peter a lesson." She was a being the world called the Sword Fiend.